This is Discovery from the middeck, putting blocks 5 and 6 in work.
We copy.
Houston Discovery with an update.
Go ahead, Eileen.
We have completed the actions in the SN checklist. We're done with page 5-3 with just a few cleanups. We're going to move to post-insertion at this time. And we'll be switching our helmet comm over to speaker mic, and we'll give you a comm check on that shortly.
I have one small comment on block 1, and when you get on the headsets, let me know.
Okay, and we'll give you a call.
Aboard Discovery, the crew now beginning to exit their seats as they begin the work of setting up Discovery for an extended stay in orbit and its trip to the International Space Station. On the flight deck during Discovery's climb to orbit, along with Commander Eileen Collins and pilot Jim Kelly, was mission specialist Soichi Noguchi and flight engineer Steve Robinson. On the lower deck of Discovery during its climb to orbit were astronauts Andy Thomas, Wendy Lawrence, and Charlie Carmada. They'll all begin exiting seats now and donning the orange launch and entry suits, or doffing the orange launch and entry suits worn during the climb to orbit. Some major milestones as they approach a go for orbit operations, which is the official signal that they have set up shop and all is in order for an extended stay in orbit, include the opening of the payload bay doors and the activation of radiators located along the interior of those doors that are one of the primary cooling systems for Discovery during its time in orbit. Opening of the payload bay doors is anticipated about 45 minutes from now or so.
Houston Discovery, comm check.
Loud and clear, Switch.
Thank you, loud and clear too.
This graphic from Mission Control shows Discovery's current orientation in space and position over the Earth.
Copy.
Discovery's altitude now 140 statute miles above the nighttime Indian Ocean. Coming up on NASA television in a few minutes, we anticipate continued replays of Discovery's launch from cameras around the launch site at the Kennedy Space Center. On board Discovery, the crew in a very busy time frame as they move through a variety of procedures to set up shop on board, configuring the crew cabin for operations in orbit. One of the highlights, the opening of the payload bay doors on Discovery. That payload bay door opening comes at about an hour and a half after launch. That's about 40 minutes or so from now. Then about 2 hours or so after launch, the crew completes those initial setup operations on board and will likely receive a go for orbit operations. That's the official go that Discovery is ready for an extended stay in orbit, continuing its mission toward the International Space Station. Again, these replays of engineering views of Discovery's launch from the Kennedy Space Center this morning. All systems on board Discovery are in good shape. Flight controllers here in Mission Control discussing no concerns with the spacecraft. This is Mission Control Houston on NASA television. We're continuing to watch replays of Discovery's launch this morning from the Kennedy Space Center. These varying views of the launch recorded by cameras around the launch site. On board Discovery, the crew continuing to set up shop in orbit. Coming up for them, one of the major milestones is about a half an hour away. That'll be the opening of the payload bay doors. It is possible we may get live television for Discovery of the opening of the doors, as at that time Discovery will be over the Johnson Space Center and a spaceflight tracking system that is available here through which television may be able to be received. Payload bay door opening activities on board are anticipated to take place around 11:06 a.m. Central Time. On board, the crew is taking off the orange launch and entry suits, the partial pressure suits they wore during the climb to orbit, preparing to set up the cabin for orbital operations.
In Houston, Discovery is starting the circuit breaker check on page 1-3.
And we're with you.
As activities smoothly progress aboard Discovery, again as the crew setting up shop in orbit. Coming up on NASA television also at approximately 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern, will be a post-launch press conference from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. That post-launch press conference anticipated around 11 a.m. Central Time.
And Houston, Discovery is ready for your change on Block 1.
Okay, Eileen, it's just a small note. In step 4, you will be dual G2.
Step 4 will be dual G2.
That's a good copy. And while I have you, Eileen, if you'll flip over to page 1-5 in the timeline, I have a change to the maneuver to payload bay opening attitude.
We're on page 1-5 and ready to copy.
Okay, that will be target ID 2, body vector 5, pitch 9090, yaw 7, and Omicron 266. How copy?
Body vector will be 5, pitch 90, yaw 7, and Omicron 266. And while I have you, we just thought thought we'd pass on that for the ET photo, both Andy and Soichi got some very, very good photos over a long period of time, so hopefully we'll have some good stuff to send down to you tomorrow.
Okay, that's going to be awesome, and we can pass back to you that the stack camera on the way up was absolutely stunning all the way through ET-SEP.
Oh, that's great to hear. And Houston, Andy would like to pass down our thanks to Dave and Rao for all the ET photo training that they got, and he did make sure that there is film in the camera.
And pass back to him that that is great news. We appreciate it.
Roger that. Houston, we're starting block 1.
Copy, we're watching.
As we continue to watch replays of engineering camera views of Discovery's launch from the Kennedy Space Center, all systems on board Discovery continue to operate well, with Discovery now above the Southern Ocean, south of Australia.
Block 3 is in work.
Thank you.
Last communications between the crew and mission control, Eileen Collins confirming that astronauts Soichi Noguchi and Andy Thomas got very good imagery of the external tank during the external tank maneuver that was performed by Discovery. That maneuver performed at a point where the tank was closer to the shuttle than ever before to allow imagery at a distance almost a third of what previous imagery had been done in that type of maneuver. That imagery will be transmitted to the ground on day 3 of the mission.
If you like the NBAT, we'll do the Ops 106 mode recall.
And we like your NBAT.
This is Mission Control Houston as we continue to watch replays of camera views of Discovery's launch this morning. Coming up on NASA television at around 11 a.m. Central Time will be a post-launch press conference that originating from the Kennedy Space Center. Participants in that press conference are anticipated to be Administrator Mike Griffin, Bill Reedy, the Associate Administrator for the Office of Space Operations, Bill Parsons, Space Shuttle Program Manager, and Mike Leinbach, NASA Launch Director for Discovery's launch. All activities continue to go well on board. Upcoming milestone will be the opening of payload bay doors on Discovery. That's anticipated about 11:06 a.m. Central Time. We may get television down of that opening through ground sites located at the Johnson Space Center here in Houston as the Discovery flies overhead. The KU-band antenna, the dish-shaped antenna that is deployed over the side of the payload bay of Discovery and that allows the majority of television transmission to the ground, will not be deployed and activated until about 3 a.m. Central Time on Wednesday.
Houston Discovery, we're in step 4, and if you like the NVAT, we'll do the Ops 201 transition.
And we like your NVAT. Your go for the transition.
That call from Commander Eileen Collins that the crew's ready to transition the onboard flight control computers for Discovery to the software that's used for orbital operations, package called Ops 201. That as they continue through a very busy pace for the next hour or so of setting up the spacecraft and the cabin for an extended stay in orbit. The Data Processing Systems Officer in Mission Control reports she sees the onboard flight control computers transitioning now to the orbit operations software. Software transitions completed on board Discovery. All that going smoothly.
Discovery Block 3 is complete.
Thanks, Steve.
Houston Discovery starting Block 4.
Copy, thanks.
Houston Discovery Blocks 5 and 6 are complete.
Thanks, Winnie.
And Houston Discovery, we're going to load the DAP at this time and the maneuver.
Okay, we're ready for that.
Houston Discovery, like to put payload bus activation in work.
And we're ready for that, Vegas.
This is Mission Control Houston. We continue to watch replays of recorded views of Discovery's launch. On board, the crew continuing through their activities to set up shop in orbit. Discovery's moved into its first sunrise in space. Sunrise and sunset coming every 45 minutes for the spacecraft, respectively, as it circles the Earth each hour and a half. On board, coming up for the crew is the milestone of opening the payload bay doors, to allow radiators along the interior of the doors to cool shuttle systems. That milestone as Discovery sets up shop in orbit and prepares the cabin and spacecraft systems for extended operations. Coming up on NASA television in just a few minutes will be a post-launch press conference, that originating from the Kennedy Space Center. That anticipated around 11 a.m. Central Time, noon Eastern, in just a few minutes on NASA television. Participants in the post-launch press conference upcoming include NASA Administrator Mike Griffin, Associate Administrator for the Office of Space Operations Bill Reedy, Bill Parsons, the Space Shuttle Program Manager, and Mike Leinbach, NASA Launch Director. Again, that press conference coming up in just a few minutes on NASA television. All activities continue to go well for Discovery and crew as they focus toward the next milestone for them, opening the payload bay doors.
Houston Discovery with an update. We're up to step 9.
Copy, we're watching.
Die 18 Uhr Nachrichten, herzlich willkommen. Ich bin Alexander Privitera.
Und mein Name ist Hans-Hermann Gockel. Herzlich willkommen auch von mir.
Aufatmen in Cape Canaveral. Die Raumfähre Discovery hat einen Bilderbuchstart hingelegt. Auch die Treibstoffsensoren, mit denen es bei den abgebrochenen Startversuchen am 13. Juli Probleme gegeben hatte, arbeiteten heute fehlerfrei.
Ja, einer der 4 Sensoren hatte vor 2 Wochen falsche Werte angezeigt, weshalb NASA-Techniker damals den Countdown gestoppt hatten. Die 12-tägige Discovery-Mission dient in erster Linie Testzwecken. Die Crew soll die gut 100 technischen Neuerungen auf Herz und Nieren prüfen.
Und außerdem bringt die Discovery auch Nachschub zur Raumstation ISS, in der seit Mitte April der Russe Krikaljov und sein amerikanischer Kollege Phillips ihren Dienst versehen. Und wir sind nun live verbunden mit unserem Korrespondenten in Washington, Stefan Strote. Stefan, aufatmen in Washington, aufatmen in Florida, aufatmen auch in Houston.
Ganz sicher, und das Ganze war wirklich ein Bilderbuchstart und die Erleichterung, die war fast körperlich spürbar. Erleichterung natürlich nicht nur bei den Astronauten an Bord der Raumfähre und bei den Angehörigen am Boden, die das Ganze mitverfolgt haben. Alle Amerikaner, die haben einfach gewartet auf eine positive Nachricht. Man hört so viel in letzter Zeit von Problemen, Terroranschlägen und. Und da fehlte einfach jetzt eine positive Nachricht, ein Gemeinschaftsgefühl. Und das war ganz sicherlich jetzt da. Die Nation hing vor dem Fernseher, hat miterlebt, wie die Raumfähre so wirklich absolut perfekt abgehoben hat. Aufatmen aber auch im politischen Kontrollzentrum hier in Washington, denn auch für die Bush-Regierung war das ein ganz, ganz wichtiger Moment. Auch im Weißen Haus hat der Präsident, der das vor dem Fernseher miterlebte, ganz sicher den Atem angehalten, denn er muss ja immer wieder den Kritikern antworten, die da sagen, wir brauchen doch eigentlich diese bemannten Raumflüge gar nicht mehr. Die Roboter wie Rover, die können sowas doch wahrscheinlich mindestens genauso gut wie die Astronauten. Und der Präsident, der hat eigentlich ganz andere Pläne noch für seine Nation. Er hat ja gesagt, dass die USA eigentlich weiter müssen weiter sogar als der Mond. Er hat das Ziel Mars vorgegeben und das soll in den nächsten Jahrzehnten passieren. Die Supermacht also auch im Weltraum weiter auf dem Vormarsch. Und mein Kollege Alexander Römer, der hat diesen Bilderbuchtag noch einmal zusammengefasst.
Es ist vollbracht. Das große Zittern hat ein Ende. Ohne Zwischenfälle startete um 16:39 Uhr die Discovery pünktlich vom Cape Canaveral aus. Innerhalb von nur 8 Minuten hat das Shuttle eine Geschwindigkeit von mehr als 27.000 Stundenkilometern. Um 17:24 Uhr ist die Umlaufbahn in 400 Kilometern erreicht. Der Orbiter wird nun am Donnerstagmittag an der internationalen Raumstation ISS ankoppeln. 12 Tage harte Arbeit warten auf die Astronauten. Mit großen Erwartungen stiegen die 7 Astronauten schon einmal am 13. Juli in ihr Shuttle. Doch ein defekter Sensor am Treibstofftank ließ die Verantwortlichen zögern. Der Start wurde abgebrochen. Erinnerungen an das Unglück der US-Raumfähre Columbia vor 2,5 Jahren wurden wach. Das gesamte Shuttle-Programm könnte in Frage gestellt werden. Der nächste Start muss klappen. Nach tagelanger Prüfung der Sensoren geben die Verantwortlichen grünes Licht zum erneuten Betanken. 50 Meter hoch ist der Tank, 1,9 Millionen Liter flüssiger Wasser und Sauerstoff werden eingefüllt. Keiner der Sensoren meldet Verdächtiges, der Schaden ist behoben. Dazu die guten Wetternachrichten. Ein Start wird immer wahrscheinlicher. Die Besatzung um Kommandantin Eileen Collins steigt 3,5 Stunden vor Ende des Countdowns in die Raumfähre ein. Alle Instrumente werden von der Besatzung gecheckt. Alles ist bereit. Der Start kann kommen.
Und es war ein Bilderbuchstart. Nochmal die Frage an Stefan Strote in Washington. Stefan, du hast es vorhin schon gesagt, der Präsident hat Großes vor. Sein Ziel ist der Mars. Man höre und staune, aber das kostet ja auch ein bisschen was. Haben die Amerikaner überhaupt das Kleingeld dafür?
Naja, darum geht es natürlich. Letztlich die Steuerzahler, die fragen sich immer wieder, müssen wir wirklich eine runde Milliarde Dollar pro Start, pro Mission hinlegen? Und der Präsident ist der Meinung, ja, da spielt natürlich auch viel Nationalstolz mit eine Rolle und immer wieder noch die Konkurrenz zu den Russen. Man möchte natürlich, was die bemannte Raumfahrt angeht, möchte man wirklich nicht abhängig sein von den Sojus-Kapseln der Russen. Also das würde sich mit dem Selbstbewusstsein der Supermacht wirklich nicht vereinbaren lassen. Deswegen dieser Start auch so wichtig und der Blick auf die nächste Station, auf den Mars. Zunächst einmal hofft man, dass hier alles gut weitergeht. Das heißt, die nächsten Stationen, die nächsten Phasen dieser Mission sind relativ einfach zu handeln und man hofft, dass auch dann die Wiedereintrittsphase diesmal gut überstanden wird. Also hier heißt es, so weit, so gut, wir fliegen wieder.
Vielen Dank, Stefan, nach Washington. Und wir drehen die Frage gleich weiter an Professor Ulrich Walter. Er ist Raumfahrtexperte, er ist selbst Shuttle-Astronaut. Und also die erste Phase, wir haben es alle beschrieben, Bilderbuchstart für den Shuttle, die Schwierigkeiten hat es nicht gegeben. Was passiert eigentlich jetzt? Es ist ja fast 1,5 Stunden sind vergangen seit dem Bilderbuchstart. Was passiert jetzt im Shuttle Discovery?
Also die Astronauten haben sich zunächst erstmal diesen Launch and Entry Suit, diesen orangenen Anzug ausgezogen, was nicht so ganz einfach ist. Und zudem muss man wissen, dann duftet es im Shuttle auch nicht so ganz gut, denn beim Liegen in diesem Shuttle muss man doch manchmal auf Toilette und da gibt es besondere Ausrüstungen für den Astronauten, wo er dann mal kann. Und wenn man die dann auszieht, also strömt ein besonderer Duft durch der Shuttle. Danach geht es gleich in die Experimente. Es gibt also zwischendurch auch medizinische Experimente.
Das wird aber alles entsorgt erst einmal.
Das wird entsorgt. Es gibt im Boden des sogenannten Middecks gibt so Klappen und da stopft man diese ganzen Pampers, die man sozusagen beim Start hatte, rein. Und diese Launch-and-Entry-Suits kommen in die sogenannten Bunks. Das sind solche Schlafkojen, da werden die einfach reingesteckt.
Das bedeutet, die können sich mehr oder weniger frei oder freier bewegen. Sind sie jetzt schon, ja, also sie sind nicht mehr angeschnallt, sie brauchen nicht mehr zu sitzen.
Die Stühle werden abgebaut. Die kann man abbauen, das sind Stahl, die werden zusammengeklappt, die werden in eine Ecke gestellt und damit hat man eigentlich einen relativ großen Raum. Groß ist übertrieben, der ist so von hier bis zu Ihnen rüber, also da leben dann 7 Astronauten, da gibt es oben noch ein bisschen Flightdeck. Also es ist immer noch klein, aber weil die Stühle weg sind, ist es doch relativ geräumig.
Nun geht es ja demnächst aus dem Shuttle raus in die ISS, ist ja auch nicht unbedingt die Größe eines Fußballplatzes. Gibt es eigentlich bei dieser Mission und bei allen Missionen so etwas wie einen Lagerkoller?
Ja. Jein, denn die Astronauten sind ausgewählt, so einen Lagerkoller gerade nicht zu haben. Also es gibt diese Klaustrophobie-Tests, wo man wirklich testet, flippt so ein Astronaut wirklich aus. Also ich musste mich zum Beispiel in eine Lederblase begeben, das ist, glaube ich, ein Standardtest, immer noch bei der NASA, die ist nur so lang, hat diesen Durchmesser. Da muss man sich reinkrümmen wie ein Embryo, muss da eine halbe Stunde drin liegen. Und wenn dann einer ausflippt, dann kann er nach Hause gehen. Also Sie sehen, man wird darauf getestet und ich denke mal, eigentlich würde eigentlich keiner unter Lagerkoller landen.
Und was passiert normalerweise, wenn insbesondere da dieser Start ja auch so eine große symbolische Bedeutung hatte und die Crew im Innern natürlich auch sicherlich etwas mitgezittert hat, schätze ich zumindest.
Ja, das ist überhaupt keine Frage, natürlich.
Und spricht man erstmal drüber, sagt man, es war doch gut, wie es gelaufen ist, oder konzentriert man sich gleich auf das, was man vorhat?
Die Challenger-Katastrophe im Jahre 86 war eigentlich der entscheidende Auslöser. Die ersten 2 Minuten ist jeder ruhig, keiner spricht ein Wort, denn jeder weiß, in diesen ersten 2 Minuten, solange die Feststoffraketen brennen, kann man absolut nichts tun. Was immer passiert, man kann sie nicht mehr absprengen, denn in dem Augenblick würde der Luftwiderstand einen solchen Schlag auf der Shuttle geben, dass es zerbrechen würde. Das heißt, sie haben überhaupt keine Möglichkeit. Und deswegen ist es eigentlich Totenstille im Shuttle in diesen ersten 2 Minuten. Und wenn diese Feststoffraketen abgesprengt sind, dann hat man alle Freiheiten der Welt. Man kann den externen Tank absprengen, man kann sofort umdrehen, wieder landen, wo man hergekommen ist. Man kann über den Atlantischen Ozean in Spanien und Frankreich landen. Man hat alle Möglichkeiten. Und deswegen geht wirklich ein Schrei durch Shuttle. Der Charlie bei uns hat geschrien, yeah, wir waren oben. Und dann geht es eigentlich erst richtig los.
Ja, vielen Dank für den Moment. Bis jetzt ist ja alles glatt gegangen und wollen wir hoffen, dass es so bleibt. Wir sprechen gleich bestimmt noch weiter. Am Telefon ist jetzt aber in Cape Canaveral Uwe Pape, EADS-Projektleiter. Und EADS hat auch Wichtiges dazugetan bei dieser Mission. Herr Pape, was denn?
Ja, an Bord war die sogenannte ESP2, das ist eine External Storage Plattform, die kritische Ersatzteile der Raumstation beherbergt und die dann permanent an die Station angedockt werden wird, und zwar am Tag 9, am Flugtag 9, mit einer Außenbordaktion der Crew mithilfe des Shuttle-Arms.
Herr Pape, Sie sind ja, ich weiß nicht, oder zumindest waren vor 1,5 Stunden im VIP-Bereich und haben von dort aus den Start verfolgt. Können Sie uns noch einmal ganz kurz beschreiben, was dort passiert ist bei Ihnen und was im Moment los ist?
Ja, es war dann noch, wir hatten ja noch mal über die Politikerriege da gesprochen. Also meine Deutung, dass die verschwunden waren aufs Dach, war falsch. Also Jeff Bush war auch dort, als auch die First Lady. Und die waren also sozusagen, haben mit ausgehalten. Es war also doch ein ziemlicher, sag ich mal, ja, es war eine mir fehlt das Wort. Also eine Solidarität sozusagen mit den Menschen, die da also auch alle irgendwo eine Beziehung zu haben, denn dass viele auf der VIP-Lounge sind auch direkt, so wie ich auch, beteiligt an diesem Flug und an dieser Mission. Insofern war das, fand ich, ein gutes Zeichen auch.
Vielen Dank, Herr Pape. Herr Walter, ist das wirklich so, dass die Raumfahrtgemeinschaft, die Community sich sehr geschlossen fühlt in solchen Momenten, dass alle, egal ob es nun Russen, Chinesen, Europäer, Amerikaner sind, im Grunde genommen diesen Start als einen weiteren Schritt Richtung Mars oder Richtung Mond sehen?
Das gilt nicht nur für diese Community, sondern Sie müssen das so sehen. Die Amerikaner leben die Raumfahrt. Sie leben für die Zukunft und Raumfahrt ist Zukunft. Deswegen pilgern heute 200.000 Leute hin. Als John Glenn in den Weltraum geflogen ist, er war 77 Jahre, waren 300.000 Leute da. Das heißt, die Zukunft ist Raumfahrt und deswegen engagieren sich die Amerikaner da rein. Das heißt, das ist das Ding, was sie machen. Sie wollen in die Zukunft, während wir natürlich mehr in die Vergangenheit schauen. Das ist der Unterschied.
Ist ja auch wichtig für die Wirtschaft, ungemein wichtig und für viele Hunderttausende von Arbeitsplätzen rund um den Globus. Aber Professor Walter, eine Frage habe ich doch noch. Ja. Die Kommandantin.
Ja, die Eileen Collins. Ja.
Eine Frau.
Sehr charmant übrigens. Ja. Sie ist beides. Sie hat das, was man sich idealerweise, sie ist eine charmante Frau und sie ist enorm intelligent und kann fliegen wie kein anderer.
Sehen Sie, und deshalb müssen Sie jetzt auf folgende Frage gefasst sein. Ja, sind die Astronautinnen die besseren Astronauten?
Es gibt eine Regel bei der NASA, die besagt, dass auf jeder Mission mindestens eine Frau mitfliegen sollte. Die NASA hat erkannt, dass Frauen wenig. Das ist das eine. Und auf der anderen Seite bringen sie eine bessere Stimmung in die Crew. Und allein aus diesen Gründen muss eine Frau dabei sein.
Ja, prima.
Vielen Dank, Herr Walter. Wir haben auch heute eine TED-Frage gehabt für Sie, liebe Zuschauer. Halten Sie die bemannte Raumfahrt für sinnvoll? Und wir haben, beziehungsweise wir haben die Ergebnisse und Sie haben so entschieden. Mit Ja haben beantwortet 76,3% der Anrufer, mit Nein lediglich 23,7% der Anrufer. Und Sie können natürlich auch weiter anrufen und abstimmen.
Good afternoon and welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center. I've been waiting 2 years to say this, but welcome to everyone as we have our post-launch press conference. And congratulations to everybody up here and the teams that have worked hard on this for the last 2.5 years. We're going to have some brief remarks from our folks up here, and then we'll go to questions. Again, I'd like you to, as standard procedure, please identify yourself and your affiliate before asking a question. Let me introduce our briefing members today. To my left is Michael Griffin, NASA Administrator. To his left, William Reedy, Associate Administrator for Space Operations. To his left, Bill Parsons, Space Shuttle Program Manager. To his left, Wayne Hale, Deputy Program Manager for the Space Shuttle Program. And to his left, Mike Leinbach, Shuttle Launch Director. As I said, a few brief remarks, and then we'll get to some questions. Mr. Administrator.
Thank you, Dean, and thanks to all of you here. I'll keep my opening remarks brief, but I want to use them to ask you all to take note of what you saw here today. The power and the majesty of the launch, of course, but also the competence and the professionalism, the sheer gall, the pluckiness, the grittiness of this team that pulled this program out of the depths of despair 2.5 years ago and made it fly. I want you to think about what it takes to get millions of different parts from thousands of vendors across the country to work together to produce what you saw here today, to realize how chancy it is, how difficult it is, at what a primitive state of technology it still is. And this team managed to do it, and I think a large debt of appreciation is due to them. They have worked as hard as any team in NASA history to get to produce what you saw today. Thank you.
Amen. This has been a total team effort since the very beginning, 2.5 years ago, and as all of you have followed along with us, it's been a struggle, a constant struggle to overcome an awful lot of things. What you didn't see out on the launch pad today was the fact that Atlantis is stacked in the VAB ready to go. We've accomplished a tremendous amount, but this is the launch. We've got 12 days of orbit operations to do, and then we've got to get Discovery and her crew safely back home. I think today Mother Nature smiled on us, and I also think the Columbia crew smiled on us. We owe them and their families a debt of gratitude. The entire NASA family does. And to get Eileen and her crew up safely in orbit today with a pristine vehicle and a superb count, I just can't say enough good things about the team that I've been fortunate to be associated with. Bill?
I'd just like to send a personal thanks to all our shuttle program folks, the NASA workers, the contractors, the NASA centers that jumped in and helped us out, solve so many technical problems. You just can't believe what an effort this was for this agency, and I can't tell you how much support this program got in our effort. And I just echo what Bill said. We still got some work to do, and then we'll bring the crew home safely, and we'll fly another one. So I really, again, I just can't tell you what this means today.
I don't know how to begin. This is my heart's been in my throat all morning. It's been a great day, and to think that here we are today with Americans back in flight on an American vehicle is just a tremendous step, and it'll be the first in many steps as we head out into the exploration of the solar system back to the moon and onto Mars. And this team showed a kind of spirit and dedication to overcome difficulties that is going to take, and I couldn't be more proud of them. It's a great day.
Times like this, I get to represent the launch team and really all of Kennedy Space Center. And I just wish you all could have been in the lobby of the Launch Control Center when we were enjoying our beans and cornbread that we hadn't enjoyed in over 10.5 years. The mood was just giddy. People were just slapping each other on the back. And there won't be one thing better than today's launch, and that'll be the landing in 12 days. All right, that'll be it for our opening remarks. We'll now take questions, and please identify yourself and your affiliate. Let's go right here in the blue shirt, Jay Barbary.
Jay Barbary with NBC. First, let me ask you a question as a journalist. Did you see any debris or anything come off the bay in your early tapes? And as a non-journalist who has covered all 145 missions, magnificent, okay? Did you see any debris?
Well, let me just say, I talked with the two senior members of the photo imagery group that were on their way to review the imagery. It's a little early to make comments on what's going on. You know, you have to have some experience and some knowledge to be able to interpret the photography. I did get an early report before we left the firing room from the radar team that said they saw no cracks prior to SRB SEP, and of course at SRB SEP we put off booster covers and different things that we know come off. So so far, I think the best shot was that shot of the external tank looking back at the orbiter as it flew away, and it looked really good to me. We'll have to see, though. The guys are going over that frame by frame, and tomorrow, you know, we'll have a better story for you.
All right, along the wall, let's go with Mike Cabbage.
Mike Cabbage with the Orlando Sentinel. Let's follow up on Jay's question. It appears, someone who's not an expert certainly, from watching the film from the ET camera, that right after the solid rocket boosters separate, that there's clearly some kind of a debris event. It doesn't appear to strike the orbiter, but it does look like it's a large piece of debris. Have you gotten any additional information on what that could be, where it could have come from, or what's going on with it?
No. We're waiting for the experts to come back and tell us.
All right, next question, right there in front.
Simon with KHWV, TV in Houston. The sensors work today. What's your reaction to that, and do you feel like you could finally put this to bed as an unexplained anomaly, as you call it?
Is that for me?
That's fine.
I'm a little disappointed. I'll be very honest with you. Having worked through the rationale and satisfied ourselves right up to including me that we were good to go with 3 of 4. I said the other day, and I meant it, I wanted the one that failed the other day to fail again, because we had some diagnostic procedures in place today, and maybe we could have removed the U from the UA and turned it into an EA, and that would have been nice to do. So now we're in the position that I think Mike Leinbach said earlier, we have an unexplained resolution. and I guess that's good, but engineers don't like the unexplained, and now the evidence is, or at least half the evidence is gone, never to be seen again.
All right, let's stay back along the wall. Tracy.
Tracy watching USA Today, I guess for Mr. Hale. Were you relieved to see by the end of the countdown that the sensors were all working right?
It's always good to have a clean vehicle where everything's working right. So yes, I was very pleased. I kind of thought that might happen. So
I'll tell you, we had a very detailed troubleshooting plan that we ran through today, and try as we might, we were not able to make an eco sensor fail today. So it was a good feeling.
Start at it, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Second row, blue shirt, Tom.
Thank you very much. Tom Costello from NBC News. Was there anything at all today that didn't go as picture perfect as it appeared to have gone to all of us watching, and both on the ground and also on television? Was there anything, any glitches, anything that didn't go right?
I talked to Mission Control just a couple minutes before I came over here, and there is one temperature sensor that has become erratic.
What does that mean?
Not much. Not much. One out of hundreds.
And I'll tell you from the launch countdown perspective, it was a very, very clean countdown. We had some liquid nitrogen dripping out of the ground umbilical carrier plate, which connects to the external tank, the hydrogen vent arm at the end of the hydrogen vent arm. But we've seen that before, and really that was the biggest thing we talked about. We were waiting for the ecos to rear their heads, and they never did. So from my perspective, it was a very, very clean countdown. Right up front, right here in the flag.
Stefano Collegan for Time Magazine. Mr. Weinbach, you literally picked up the pieces of Columbia, put them together. You were also launch director for that launch, and today you are thoroughly experiencing the high of having launched another shuttle safely. Can you just give us tell us how you feel? I mean, all of these highs and lows.
It's been a ride for the whole shuttle program. I saw a close friend of one of the Columbia crew that was lost after launch. I saw her down in the lobby, and we embraced, and it was a very special moment. She helped me in the hangar when we were putting the debris together. So for her especially, it was very important. But really for the whole team, we've come almost full circle. We have a 12-day mission ahead of us and a landing, and then we can claim we've come full circle. Second row, green shirt, Ralph.
Ralph Artabidi, Los Angeles Times. Now that you've got a successful launch, do you feel that there is any lasting damage in terms of the public support or your confidence in the Columbia accident, or as you say, have you come full circle and now you're firing again on all 8 cylinders, and it's all history?
I think that it was a misnomer that public support ever flagged during the downtime. Matter of fact, immediately after the accident, I think people recognized that we're in a very risky business, and it's very important. During the downtime, we even had the solicitation for the educator astronauts. That was at an all-time high. I think we've got 19 billion websites. That was earlier this week and probably after the launch today. It shows that there's always been a tremendous amount of public support, and I think the vision for space exploration has helped ignite that. This is the first step on the way to doing that, the return to flight, getting the station built, moving on beyond low Earth orbit, and getting them back to the moon and onto Mars. I think people endorse that, people around the world. It's one of the nobler things that we do on behalf of all mankind, and people appreciate that. So I disagree with your initial premise. I think the support's always been there, and it's probably higher today than it's been in some time. You know, you're never as good as you are until your next launch. You know, that's the operations business that we're in. You're always working on that next launch, and you can never let down your guard. And I think that was one of the lessons relearned after Columbia, is it takes eternal vigilance to do what we do. And there isn't anything easy about it. And I'll guarantee you, knowing the people that are lined up here on the dais with me, and the people they represent around the NASA family, there isn't anything easy about this on any given day. And the fact that Discovery was so clean today is a tribute to all the folks that worked since August of 2001 to put that vehicle back together piece by piece by piece, and it was pristine today when we went to go launch. And I think Eileen and her crew have got the best vehicle we've ever fielded, and Atlantis is going to be equally good when it goes flying in September.
Front row right here in the white shirt.
Mike Schneider, Associated Press. I know you all are related about the pristine launch, but I was wondering if the celebration has been muted compared to past launches because of the uncertainty about the next 12 days.
Well, surely. I mean, the first thing you learn as a student pilot is that the flight's not over until the engine is shut off and the airplane's tied down. And we have, as Mike Leinbach said, 12 more days plus before we achieve that state, and that's when we'll know that this was a safe flight.
You know, I'd have to add, this is a difficult mission. We still have a lot of complex maneuvers to do. We still have a lot of test objectives to meet. And we still have a lot out in front of us. And this team, although we were very proud and very elated to see the launch today and see how well the countdown went and everything else, there's still a lot of work in front of us. And so this team will come together after this, and they'll get head down and start coloring again, because there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I think Wayne will probably vouch for the fact that this is a very, very ambitious mission, and it was so ambitious that during return to flight we decided to separate it into 2 flight tests. So we've got a tremendous amount of work ahead of us, and it's a very complex mission. I think the crew is probably the best trained crew we've ever flown, even including Captain John Young and Bob Crippen. I think Eileen and her crew have been in training for this mission since 2001. So this is the best trained crew that we've probably ever had, but it's also probably one of the most complex test missions we've ever attempted. And this is just the first half. Okay, let's go right here in the front row, John.
John Kelly with Florida Today. Wayne, what's the MMT schedule, if you could help us out here? Are you guys going to get any kind of film analysis tonight, or will you not start meeting until tomorrow? And what's your first steps here?
Most of the film team is going to be reviewing those films for the next 12 hours or so. We'll get, as an MMT, a quick look tomorrow morning early, and then our regular schedule of MMT meetings will be 1 in the afternoon Central Time for the duration of the flight. And I think we have promised to come talk to you folks almost every day, if not every day, to tell you what we know. And we'll be here to let you know on a daily basis.
End of the row, white shirt.
Hi, Benno Schmidt, High Definition News. I'm wondering if you, with the luxury of hindsight and what appears a successful launch, if you can talk a little bit again, and this is for Wayne, about how the decision was made to go ahead and launch with an unexplained anomaly and what that might mean to Atlantis, other shuttles, and also, you know, how hard it was to replicate launch conditions in a lab.
Well, of course, there are a couple of things that you can't replicate until you get into a launch countdown, one of which is the thermal environment. You've got to load the cryogenics in the tank to get everything chilled down to those temperatures, which certainly can affect electronics or the wiring. The other thing that's very difficult to emulate is some of the potential electromagnetic interferences, and until you get all the equipment on and all the power up in the ship. You know, we did what we thought were the big potential contributors to that, but until you have everything on all at once and you're getting the full power draw through the system, you don't know how it's going to affect it. So really we had to get into this launch countdown configuration to really do the final test, if you want to call it, of how these sensors were going to work. I would say that the decision that led up to proceeding to launch with less than full up set of sensors was extremely thorough. It was not taken lightly. It was very heavily studied, heavily debated. Lots of technical analysis and input went into it. It was not a snap decision. It was well reasoned, and I think that it was a good plan. I'm glad we didn't have to execute it. And I will tell you that after we'll stop on Discovery, we'll think about what it means to Atlantis and the subsequent flights, but probably not before then. We have plenty to do to keep us busy until we get the Discovery crew back home safe.
Third row, pink shirt guy.
Guy Giuliano from the Washington Post. For Wayne, does that mean that you won't make a decision on whether to fly with 3 for Atlantis until this mission is done, or has that decision already been made?
No, I'll repeat. We're probably not going to talk anything more about eco-sensors until after the flight's over, and then we'll think about the next flight and where it goes. The folks that would be involved in that kind of discussion are heavily involved in the mission activities, and we need to stay focused on that up front.
All right, right here in the third row, green shirt.
Thank you. Greg Dobbs from HDNet. As scientifically as your minds tend to work, would each of you mind telling us just briefly how you felt emotionally during those first 60 seconds?
I don't know. I was watching displays and camera footage, looking for evidence of what we were all looking for, anything coming off the tank. Just trying to evaluate what we were seeing from an engineering perspective, realizing, of course, that it wasn't ever going to be as good as all the post-game replays that we will do. But if you want honesty, I've got to be honest with you. I was engaged in what was going on and was not aware of what I might or might not be feeling. I'm sorry. Everyone was doing it.
None of you was just taking even a moment to pump your fist and say, go, baby, go.
Oh, sure. There was more emotion in the launch control center that I've seen in all the times that I've been in there for launches. There were people clapping at various stages. There was some emotion in that firing room. So I would just say we were all feeling it, but every time it was just that moment, and then we moved on to again concentrate on what was going on with the launch and trying to see as much as we could and hear as much as we could and understand what was going on. I had Bill sitting next to me, so he was giving me kind of a blow-by-blow of what the crew was feeling, and there's nothing like hearing it from somebody that's done it before. So, again, your guys were they were pretty up.
We were pretty pumped. But our job in the control center is not over until we don't have a return to launch site aboard, which is about 4.5 minutes into the flight. And so when the launch team kind of did a little cheer at SRB separation, I'm going to have to go back and talk to them about that. Because the rules are we don't do that. But nevertheless, it was a human reaction that you could not quell. And then, of course, at MECO and at separation, when we saw the separation for the first time live, it was just surreal almost.
All right, right here, second row, white shirt.
Randy Avera, Randolph Publishing. First part for Wayne Hale. Do you have a plan to do any special launch commit criteria reviews prior to the next flight? And for Dr. Griffin, could you tell us a little bit about your strategies for possibly accelerating the return to the moon? Have you thought about that in detail?
Let me answer first. Today is about discovery and about the first of our return to flight missions, and that's all it's about. And I just don't have any comments about anything beyond that. Other topics are going to be for other times.
So the Launch Commit Working Group meets every Monday at 10 a.m. and they will meet every Monday, and they'll talk about all the different things that they talk about, and I'm sure that there may be one or two related meetings about eco-sensors. But again, that'll be after we get Discovery back on the ground.
Third row, blue shirt.
Thank you. Jeff Patterson with WFLA-TV out of Tampa. And this is a question for Mr. Hale. I know you said that there would be a frame-by-frame review of the various camera angles that you have, but have you had a chance to review some of them just from an aesthetic point of view? I mean, the free frame that you have behind you is beautiful. It almost looks like science fiction, and this has offered a unique perspective, I suppose, not only this angle, but the aircraft that we're flying around. Have you had a chance to look at some of those shots, and what is your assessment just from an aesthetic point of view?
Just from what we saw during the launch, we were watching out the window, the great, beautiful, wonderful launch where the rocket seems to just take off right over the launch control center. And then as it went out of sight, turned around and looked at the television and saw this magnificent view of the Earth and the orbiter from the external camera, and particularly when it rolled heads up, it was just brought a gasp out from everybody because it was just astounding footage that we've never seen before, and it's just it's aesthetically wonderful.
And from a crew member standpoint, it's really nice to be able to share some of that. I mean, that's what you see, that's what you experience, and for the team to be able to see that up close and personal this time, I think it was magnificent. I was kind of kidding Pat Youngs, who's Eileen's husband, about the fact that Eileen was doing a victory roll on her way to orbit. She just couldn't contain herself. That's kind of how we were feeling about that same time, I think.
All right, a few more questions. Against the wall over there, let's go with Mark. Second.
Thank you, Mark Carreau from the Houston Chronicle. I wondered if you could talk about the external tank from the vantage point of the ice inspection team, if what they saw was what you expected, that kind of condition. And could you tell us a little bit about the camera coverage you got today? Not so much the results, but did you have the numbers of cameras working that you needed to do the evaluation you plan over the next several days?
Well, let's see, the inspection of the external tank by the final inspection team. It's the tank, it's the boosters, it's the orbiter, and it's the ground systems also. And it was almost a flawless report. The first time we attempted a launch 10 days or so ago, there was an ice ball that had formed. We expected that ice ball to form again today. It was smaller today than we had anticipated, and it was smaller than it was 10 days or so ago. The vehicle was in great shape. It was wet. Water was dripping off of it. Condensation formed. It was a very humid day. But these are all things we've seen many, many times before. And so Armando Oliu, the head of the final inspection team, did his thing and reported virtually a flawless vehicle back to the control center. And we were go at that point from that perspective. All right, a few more right. Stay back along the wall, green shirt.
Thank you. Tyler Gallagher from Space.com and Space News. I was just curious as to when in this mission, knowing that you have to have some time to process your ground observations, your orbital photography and the photography from the space station, as well as the sensors along the inside of the wing, when will you have a comprehensive understanding of what the status of this vehicle is after this launch and docking at the space station?
We've laid out a very comprehensive timeline to get all of that back in. As you know, we have, in addition to the video cameras, some of which are regular old-fashioned kind of television cameras and high-definition television cameras, we have a large number of film cameras that give us very high resolution. That film is going to be sent out and developed. We're going to have film also from the WB-57s, which I'm told tracked all the way from launch through main engine cutoff. So those will be some views that we've never seen before. That'll be about another day before it comes in. We've got cameras also in the solid rocket boosters that those will have to be towed back into Port Canaveral before we can access that videotape and see what's on those cameras. In terms of the sensors in the wing leading edge, that data will be downlinked tonight during crew sleep period from mission control, and all of this information, plus the radars, plus the other instrumentation, the boom sensor survey they're going to do tomorrow, will come down over the next couple of days, and by flight day 6 we expect to have the full story put together, all the interpretation done, and a complete knowledge of the status of the orbiter.
Stay right in front, right there, Bob.
From ABC News, the heaters that you added to the shuttle, did you get a sense that they worked? You know, you mentioned that the ice ball was smaller, for example. Did that have anything to do with the heaters at all? I guess not. So did the heaters work? Did you get a sense of how they worked? Did they accomplish what you'd hoped to accomplish?
Well, the one ice ball that we did see form, as Mike described to you, was not in an area where we put the heater. It was really very far down on the tank in an area where we had determined that ice, small amounts of ice in any event, were not of any consequence to us because it was just too far toward the back end of the vehicle to cause a problem. So the heaters that we put on the bipod were absolutely mandatory. I have no doubt that if those heaters hadn't have functioned, those metal fittings bolted to that cryogenic tank would have been covered with ice. So they absolutely did their job. The heater we put in the LOX feedline bellows, it's hard to say whether it would have been required today. With the heavy condensation that we saw coming down, that tends to keep ice from forming. In any event, that heater was on, we saw no ice, and that was the objective, whether the heater did it or whether it was the condensation that kept ice from forming in that area.
All right, we have time for 2 more questions, and that is it. Let's stay right along there on the wall.
Stephen Young with spaceflightnow.com. I wonder if I could just follow up on Mike's question at the beginning of the news conference. Those of us who watched the ET-CAM footage saw what appeared to be a fairly noticeable piece come off. I was just wondering if any of you did see that, whether the camera angles make it look larger, or you know, I just worry that we might blow this out of proportion before you get a chance to address it after the proper analysis has been done.
Didn't see it. Haven't had a chance to see that. You know, if you give these guys a chance to take a look at this film and photography, we'll get back with you and tell you exactly what it was. I mean, if there was something there, these guys will find it. So just give us a chance to go take a look. And
I think it was up to you guys not to blow it out of proportion. I don't have that knob. Our guys are going to take a real serious look at the end-to-end footage. In fact, a danger would be possibly seeing something that's very large and visible that we haven't had a chance to look at, and ignore something that would be smaller and more significant. The guys are going to take a professional look at every frame of footage that we have from every camera that we have. Because as I've said, and others have said several times, these are test flights right now. The primary object under test is the external tank and all of the design changes we made, NASA made, to that tank so that we would never have a repeat of 107.
All right, final question. Let's stay at the very back. Would you please walk over to the microphone?
Dave McDaniel from West 2 News in Orlando. I know that you went to some detail about explaining that you want to see all this footage and stuff, but the thought that this large piece of debris comes up has to give you some pause and some uneasiness at this point.
Well, let me just say, there are things that we know that come off the vehicle, the paper covers on the RCS thrusters. Some of those come off early, some of them come off late. The photo experts have trained and are practiced in looking at these things to tell whether you're looking at a big thing that's a long way away or a small thing that's close to the camera. I personally have not really looked at the footage, and we kind of halfway watched during the launch, one eye out the window, one eye on the TV screens. So I didn't see it. But the folks that are going through this review are going to look at it very carefully. And if there is something there, you know, we will get back with you. I've got to tell you, too, that we're going to do a very thorough inspection of the orbiter thermal protection system in the next 2 days. First with the boom sensor system tomorrow, and then with the rotation pitch maneuver and the pictures from the International Space Station on the following day. So we are going to know, without a doubt, the status of the thermal protection system before the Discovery crew comes home.
beyond.
Sekunden der Anspannung für die NASA und ganz Amerika. Heute Nachmittag Countdown und Start der Raumfähre Discovery. Alles verläuft nach Plan, keine Probleme, nicht mit den Treibstoffsensoren, nicht mit dem Wetter. Große Erleichterung bei der NASA. Herzlich willkommen zu einem NTV-Spezial zur ersten Space-Shuttle-Mission seit 2,5 Jahren. Die NASA im Glücksrausch, hat ein Korrespondent geschrieben. Und in der Tat, dass der Start geklappt hat, ist sehr wichtig für das Shuttle-Programm insgesamt, das auf der Kippe stand seit der Katastrophe mit der Columbia. Und es ist wichtig für die europäische und deutsche Raumfahrt und ihr Engagement bei der Internationalen Raumstation. Übermorgen soll die Discovery an der ISS andocken und sie mit 15 Tonnen Verpflegung und Ausrüstung versorgen.
3, 2, 1, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery, beginning America's new journey to the moon, Mars and beyond.
Endlich ist die Discovery gestartet, allen Befürchtungen und Widrigkeiten zum Trotz. Schon Stunden vor dem Start waren die Astronauten ins Shuttle eingestiegen. In der Crew herrschte gute Stimmung. Auch bei Anführerin Aline Collins, die von ihren Kollegen liebevoll Mom genannt wird. Aber die Angst vor technischen Problemen bleibt. Denn wenn das Shuttle einmal gestartet ist, können die Astronauten wenig tun, wenn Probleme auftreten.
Es gibt ein kleines Reparaturset an Bord, mit dem man kleinere Risse, sagen wir mal, in den Tragflächen oder so reparieren könnte, aber größere Sachen können nicht repariert werden. Denn dieser Flug, der jetzt nun stattfindet, ist ein Testflug, einer von 2 Testflügen, und da werden Möglichkeiten von Reparaturen im All erst erprobt werden müssen.
Nach 12 Tagen im All soll die Discovery wieder auf der Erde landen. Dafür besonders wichtig, der Hitzeschutzschild muss halten, damit das Shuttle nicht, wie die Columbia vor 2 Jahren, beim Eintritt in die Atmosphäre verglüht. Am Donnerstag soll die Discovery an die Raumstation ISS andocken und sie unter anderem mit Wasser versorgen. Ein Scheitern der Mission wäre fatal.
Das wäre allerdings nicht das Ende der ISS, sondern das wäre im Grunde genommen ein Zeitpunkt, wo man sich überlegen muss, wo sich die ISS-Partner, die 16 ISS-Partner überlegen müssen, wie sie weitermachen wollen. Die ISS an sich würde dann praktisch nicht zu Ende gebaut werden können, weil die großen Teile, auch das europäische Modul Columbus und das japanische Wissenschaftsmodul, nur mit Hilfe von Shuttles hochgebracht werden können.
Die Discovery-Crew fliegt ohnehin in einem Shuttle, das zu einer Generation von Auslaufmodellen gehört. Neue Raumfähren sind schon in der Entwicklung. Und die sollen dann auch weiterfliegen als nur zur ISS.
Aus Stuttgart ist uns nun Ulf Merbold zugeschaltet. Er war der erste ESA-Astronaut im All. Guten Abend nach Stuttgart.
Ja, guten Abend, Herr Theuner.
Herr Merbold, was bedeutet dieser geglückte Start und die Mission der Discovery für die europäische Raumfahrt und ganz besonders für die deutsche Raumfahrt?
Ja, es bedeutet, dass nun der weitere Aufbau der Raumstation wieder in Gang kommt. Das bedeutet, dass das von der ESA erbaute Modul, das Columbus-Modul, dann hoffentlich auch alsbald nach oben gebracht werden kann, sodass uns dann hoffentlich in 2 Jahren dieses Labor im Weltraum in voller Schönheit und Größe auch zur Verfügung steht. Und es bedeutet auch, dass der ESA-Astronaut Thomas Reiter dann hoffentlich im September fliegen wird. Der wird hinaufgeschickt, bevor dieses Modul an der Raumstation angehängt wird. Aber er wird dann trotzdem eine lange Zeit, ungefähr ein halbes Jahr, dort oben bleiben.
Nun hat es ja geheißen vor diesem Start, dass, wenn er nicht klappen sollte, die amerikanischen Pläne für die bemannte Raumfahrt für die nächsten 20 Jahre in Gefahr seien. Das sind sie nun offenbar nicht. Wollen Sie es wagen, einen Blick in die Zukunft zu werfen, wie aus Ihrer Position heraus die bemannte Raumfahrt in 10, 20 Jahren aussehen könnte?
Ja, also das, was Sie so unterstellen, das glaube ich nicht. Es gibt ja rechtsverbindliche Absprachen zwischen Amerika, Russland, uns Europäern, den Japanern und den Kanadiern, jetzt zumindest mal die Raumstation fertigzustellen und in voller Größe zu erbauen. Und das wäre nun zwar noch mal verzögert worden, würde aber in jedem Fall stattfinden, auch wenn es diesmal nicht gelungen wäre. Also das ist sozusagen die nahe Zukunft, die internationale Raumstation fertigzustellen. Aber dann wird sie hoffentlich auch 10, 15 Jahre als ein Labor genützt werden, das singuläre Eigenschaften hat. Schwerelosigkeit, keine Atmosphäre, sodass man die Signale der Sterne ohne verändert von der irdischen Atmosphäre empfangen und analysieren kann. Und drittens gewinnt man natürlich von einer solchen Station einen großen Überblick über die Erde, um von dort zu erforschen, was auf der Erde passiert. Dann wird es aller Wahrscheinlichkeit nach ein neues Programm geben, Rückkehr zum Mond, mit einer dort zu erbauenden und dann permanent besetzten Station, ähnlich wie Stationen auf Antarktika. Und dann könnte irgendwann in diesem Jahrhundert auch die Reise zum Mars auf der Tagesordnung stehen.
Vielen Dank für diese Informationen. Ulf Meerbold war das aus Stuttgart. Dankeschön. Wer sind die 7 Astronauten an Bord der Discovery? So viel vorneweg. 2 Frauen, eine davon die Kommandantin, und 5 Männer, die meisten Amerikaner, ein Australier und ein Japaner. 2 Weltraumneulinge, der Rest Veteranen. Die Kommandantin traut sich übrigens nicht, mit der Achterbahn zu fahren. Details zur Crew der Discovery.
Ein fröhliches Winken, ein hoffnungsfrohes Lächeln. Das ist der letzte Gruß, mit dem sich die 7 Astronauten für die kommenden Tage von ihren Familien und Freunden verabschieden möchten. Wer sind eigentlich die 2 Frauen und 5 Männer, die in den Astronautenanzügen stecken? Eileen Collins, sie führt das Kommando. Die 48-Jährige war bereits 3-mal im Weltraum. Ihre Kollegen rufen sie Mom, weil sie sich mütterlich um ihre Crew kümmert. Collins ist verheiratet und hat 2 Kinder. James Kelly, er ist der Discovery-Pilot. Der 41-Jährige war schon 2-mal im All. Er gilt als begeisterter Pokerspieler. Kelly hat 4 Kinder. Wendy Lawrence, die 46-Jährige, fliegt jetzt zum 4. Mal. Too short, also zu klein, ist ihr Spitzname, weil sie wegen ihrer Körpergröße von der russischen Raumfahrtbehörde für einen Einsatz abgelehnt worden war. Stephen Robinson, er hat bislang 2 Weltraumstarts hinter sich. Der 49-Jährige spielt Gitarre in einer Astronauten-Rockband und ist Junggeselle. Andrew Thomas, der Australier, war schon mal für 5 Monate an Bord der russischen Mir. Im Frühjahr hat der 53-Jährige eine Astronautin geheiratet. Charles Kamada, der 52-Jährige, ist ein Allneuling. Als Ingenieur hat er an der Verbesserung des Shuttle-Hitzeschilds mitgearbeitet. Soichi Noguchi, auch er ist noch nie im All gewesen. Der 40-Jährige wird in seinem Heimatland Japan gefeiert wie ein Star. 2,5 Jahre hatte sich die Crew auf den Einsatz vorbereitet. Angst, sagen sie, haben sie nicht.
Und wir wollen gleich abgeben zu unserem Reporter Andreas Meissner bei der ESA in Köln. Und er hat einen Gast. Andreas, bitte.
Ganz genau, Christoph. Gerhard Thiele ist wieder bei mir. Er hatte sich ja zurückgezogen, vorhin in einen separaten Raum, den Start zu verfolgen. Herr Thiele, jetzt, wo der Start so geglückt ist, die erste Phase des Starts, überhaupt der ganze Start ist so gut gelaufen. Wie geht es Ihnen jetzt? Sind Sie da auch ziemlich erleichtert?
Natürlich sind wir alle erleichtert, denn das war der erste wichtige Meilenstein, damit die Raumflüge mit der Fähre weitergehen können. Und jetzt können wir auch etwas optimistischer in die Zukunft schauen, insbesondere was den weiteren Aufbau der internationalen Raumstation angeht.
Sie hatten es schon angesprochen, ganz wichtige Sachen, die jetzt in der Zukunft noch anstehen. Ich möchte aber noch mal auf den psychologischen Aspekt eingehen, der auf Astronauten lastet. Sie waren selber im All mit der Endeavour. 2000 sind Sie geflogen mit einem Space Shuttle. Was glauben Sie, wie geht es jetzt den Kollegen an Bord dort, da Sie diesen Start jetzt so sauber durchgezogen haben? Ist da die ganze Anspannung schon weg oder kommen da noch weitere Sachen, die möglicherweise schiefgehen können?
Nein, die Anspannung ist jetzt noch auf gar keinen Fall weg. Das wird schon noch einige Stunden dauern, bis Sie das erste Mal überhaupt Luft schöpfen können und eine gewisse Pause eintritt. Erst dann merkt man, was eigentlich passiert ist. Im Moment sind die Aktivitäten noch so dicht gedrängt und man muss einen so engen Zeitplan einhalten, dass man nicht sehr viel Gedanken an das Zurückliegende verschwenden kann, sondern man muss voll konzentriert bei der Arbeit sein. Das betrifft alle 7, aber so in etwa 2,5 Stunden, da werden dann die Aktivitäten ein etwas ruhigeres Maß annehmen und dann wird der erste Blick aus dem Fenster riskiert, der auch ein bisschen länger dauern kann. Und dann sagt man sich ein Glück, dass wir das heute geschafft haben.
Sind Sie froh, dass das hier aus sicherer Entfernung beobachten können oder wären Sie jetzt gern da oben?
Na, ich gönne es jedem von den 7, dass er da natürlich drin sitzt, aber wenn man mir die Chance gegeben hätte, da mit einzusteigen, dann wäre ich natürlich sehr, sehr gerne mitgeflogen heute.
Herzlichen Dank, Herr Thiele. Die Stimmung also insgesamt hier auch gelöst. Rundherum haben sich die Mitarbeiter, die vorhin den Start in ziemlicher Anspannung gesehen haben, jetzt mal einen Sekt gegönnt. Das ist soweit geglückt. Die erste Phase ist geglückt und damit zu Ihnen zurück ins Studio, Christoph.
Vielen Dank, Andreas Meissner. Die Space Shuttles wurden in den 70er Jahren entwickelt. Die Discovery hob zum ersten Mal 1984 ab. Inzwischen hat sie 30 Flüge hinter sich. Die Mission heute ist also Flug 31. Das und das Columbia-Unglück haben bewirkt, dass die Discovery rund erneuert wurde mit der Hilfe von tausenden Ingenieuren und Technikern und zu einem Preis von in etwa $1 Milliarde. Neue Isolierungen, 66 Sensoren, 22 Temperaturfühler, zusätzliche Außenkameras und der neue Roboterarm zur Reparatur eventueller Schäden.
Das Shuttle ist mit neuen Sicherheitsstandards ausgerüstet. So werden die Treibstofftanks künftig an kritischen Stellen durch festere Materialien als mit dem sonstigen Isolierschaumstoff ummantelt. Die Treibstoffleitungen werden ab sofort beheizt, um das Shuttle vor Vereisung zu schützen. An den Flügeln befinden sich Alarmsensoren. Außerdem überwachen spezielle Minikameras das Shuttle, die Feststoffraketen sowie den Treibstofftank. Gleichzeitig kommen neue Dichtungsmaterialien am Hitzeschild zum Einsatz.
Es hat eine Menge Geld gekostet, die Discovery sicherer zu machen. Nach dem Unglück der Columbia wurden alle Space Shuttles in den vergangenen 2,5 Jahren fast runderneuert. Dennoch, die Mission bleibt ein Wagnis.
Es ist nicht gelungen, alle Probleme zu lösen, die nach dem Columbia-Unglück entdeckt worden sind. Das Shuttle ist eine enorm komplexe Maschine, vielleicht die komplexeste, die Menschen je gebaut haben. Es ist nachweislich sehr knifflig und hat ein furchtbares Potenzial, seine Crew auf unerwartete Weise zu töten.
Zwar haben die Astronauten diesmal ein Reparaturset an Bord, es ist aber noch gar nicht weltraumerprobt. Außerdem, so Kritiker, seien nur 12 der 15 Empfehlungen der unabhängigen Untersuchungskommission des Columbia-Unglücks umgesetzt worden. Immerhin, verstärkte Flügel und ein neu konzipierter Außentank gehören dazu. Genau wie dieser Teleskoparm. Mit einer Kamera sollen die Astronauten so mögliche Beschädigungen des Shuttles feststellen können. Der japanische Astronaut Noguchi hat darüber hinaus eine Sonderaufgabe bekommen. Meine erste Aufgabe ist es, den externen Tank zu filmen, wenn er sich vom Space Shuttle löst. Wir benutzen dazu einen Camcorder und auch digitale Fotografie, um wirklich sicher zu gehen, dass keine großen Trümmerteile herunterfallen oder Kacheln verloren gehen.
In Anbetracht der Risiken und der Mängel ist es folgerichtig, dass NASA-Chef Griffin die Shuttles lieber heute als morgen einmotten würde, zumal eine einzige Mission $1,5 Milliarde kostet. Derzeit ist die letzte Mission für 2010 geplant. Das Nachfolgeprojekt läuft schon. Crew Exploration Vehicle oder CEV ist der Titel. Es handelt sich dabei um ein Gefährt, das nicht nur sicher ins Orbit fliegen soll, sondern auch in der Lage sein soll, zum Mond oder zum Mars zu fliegen. Aus Kosten- und Effizienzgründen will die NASA allerdings das Trägersystem der Shuttles weiter nutzen. Details zur möglichen Zukunft der Raumfahrt.
So oder so ähnlich könnte er aussehen, der Flug zum Mars. Eine bemannte Rakete tritt in eine unbekannte Atmosphäre ein und landet auf dem roten Planeten. Die US-Flagge wird gehisst und damit die Dominanz der Amerikaner im Weltall symbolisch unter Beweis gestellt. Schweres Untersuchungsgerät findet den Weg in diese neue Welt. Dieser Traum könnte, wenn es nach US-Präsident Bush geht, bald Wirklichkeit werden. Zuerst aber wollen Bush und die NASA das Naheliegende weiter erforschen. Denn bis zum Jahr 2015 sollen wieder Menschen den Mond betreten, dort sogar dauerhafte Forschungsbasen einrichten, um dann den großen Sprung zu wagen.
Mit den Erfahrungen, die wir auf dem Mond sammeln, sind wir für den nächsten Schritt bereit. Bemannte Flüge zum Mars und darüber hinaus.
Der Mars soll schließlich bis zum Jahr 2030 erobert werden, doch nicht mit Raumfähren unserer Tage. Das gute alte Space Shuttle wird bis dahin ausgedient haben. Forscher arbeiten derzeit an der Entwicklung eines neuen Raumgleiters. Eine wichtige Rolle möchte dabei die in Bremen ansässige EADS Space Transportation spielen. Sie will die Energieversorgung und die Lebenserhaltung beisteuern. Noch eine mögliche Innovation: Freizeitflüge ins All. Anstatt zum Surfen nach Teneriffa geht es dann zu einem Flug in die Schwerelosigkeit. Für den US-Multimillionär Dennis Tito wurde dieser Traum bereits Wirklichkeit für mehr als 20 Millionen Euro. Die Fluglinie des Exzentrikers Richard Branson will den Spaß bald für nur 170.000 Euro anbieten.
Ein Traum, ja klar, aber fantastisch, wenn man sagen kann, dass dieser Traum in 3 Jahren Wirklichkeit sein wird.
Was also mag noch auf die Menschen zukommen? Ein Ferienhaus auf dem Mond oder gleich eine Reise zu fernen Planeten? Nichts scheint unmöglich. Oder wie Leonardo da Vinci sagte: Jedes Hindernis lässt sich durch Beharrlichkeit beseitigen.
Wir wollen jetzt noch einmal live nach Cape Canaveral schalten zu unserer Reporterin Gesa Eberl. Gesa, wir haben gerade eben Teile der Pressekonferenz der NASA übertragen und dort wurde auch gesagt, dass beim Start heute Nachmittag ein größeres Stück vom Außentank abgebrochen sei. Die Aufnahmen vom Start würden jetzt Bild für Bild ausgewertet. Was können Sie uns da an zusätzlichen Informationen geben?
Ja, vorhin hatten wir davon gar nicht so viel erfahren, muss ich ganz ehrlich gestehen. Hier vor Ort hat man davon nichts mitbekommen. Das Einzige, was wir erfahren haben, war direkt kurz nach dem Start, als jemand neben mir rief, der Außentank wird abgeworfen. Da dachten wir natürlich alle, es handelt sich dabei um den Außentank, der sowieso in der Erdatmosphäre verglüht, weil er ja so oder so nach den 8 Minuten nach der Startphase mit dem Tank, der Tank selber nicht mehr gebraucht wird. Dass aber noch ein großes Stück abgefallen ist, das haben wir selbst eben auch erst in der Pressekonferenz erfahren. Aber nichtsdestotrotz scheint es ja rein technisch so abgelaufen zu sein, dass das keine Konsequenzen zu haben scheint, wie uns ein weiterer Astronaut eben nach der Pressekonferenz erzählt hat, scheint das keine Konsequenzen zu haben auf den Wiedereintritt in die Erdatmosphäre nach dieser 12-tägigen Mission am 7. August.
Wie lange wird es denn dauern, bis die Leute von der NASA genau Bescheid wissen, ob dieses Teil, das abgebrochen ist vom Außentank, Schäden angerichtet hat am Shuttle oder nicht?
Ja, da müssen wir natürlich vertrauen, was uns die NASA-Techniker sagen. Alle halten ja grundsätzlich erstmal so zusammen, dass sie natürlich zuversichtlich auftreten. Ich könnte mir vorstellen, im Moment ist ja das Kontrollzentrum Houston, Texas, mit dieser gesamten Kontrolle des Shuttles beschäftigt. Man wird im Zweifel erst bei der Rückkehr, sprich vielleicht in spätestens 10 Tagen, wissen, was es genau war. Denn man hat auf dieser Mission ja unter anderem ein Projekt. Und das bedeutet, ein Roboterarm wird befestigt an diesem Shuttle außerhalb, um quasi während dieser 12-tägigen Mission zu überprüfen, ob es Beschädigungen an der Außenwand gab. An der Außenwand vor allem dieses Orbiters bzw. des Shuttles. Denn das ist ja das Wichtige. Hat womöglich dieser Außentank oder dieses Element des Außentanks, was runtergefallen ist, hat es womöglich wiederum die Raumfähre beschädigt, dann könnte es natürlich eine Konsequenz haben, spätestens beim Wiedereintritt in die Erdatmosphäre. Und das müsste eventuell jetzt über diesen Roboterarm geprüft werden. Wann wir das genau wissen, steht jetzt im Moment in den Sternen. Vielleicht erfahren wir das schon in den nächsten Tagen, sobald die Raumfähre angedockt ist an der ISS-Station. Vielleicht aber auch erst kurz vor dem 7. August, wenn das Shuttle wieder auf die Erde zurückkehren soll.
Vielen Dank nach Cape Canaveral. Unsere Reporterin Gesa Eberl war das. Dankeschön. So, meine Damen und Herren, und ich muss jetzt die Regie ganz kurz fragen, wie wir weitermachen. Das wird nicht ganz klar im Moment. Wir sind am Ende unserer Sendung. Vielen Dank für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Über jede weitere Entwicklung, vor allem über jede zusätzliche Information, die uns noch erreicht im Zusammenhang mit diesem abgebrochenen Teil des Außentanks, werden wir Sie selbstverständlich im weiteren Verlauf dieses Abends informieren. Wir machen eine kurze Pause, um 19 Uhr dann die nächsten Nachrichten.
Endlich abgehoben. Nach einem Traumstart ist die Discovery auf dem Weg zur Raumstation ISS.
Wir wollen jetzt noch einmal live nach Cape Canaveral schalten zu unserer Reporterin Gesa Eberl. Gesa, wir haben gerade eben Teile der Pressekonferenz der NASA übertragen und dort wurde auch gesagt, dass beim Start heute Nachmittag ein größeres Stück vom Außentank abgebrochen sei. Die Aufnahmen vom Start würden jetzt Bild für Bild ausgewertet. Was können Sie uns da an zusätzlichen Informationen geben?
Ja, vorhin hatten wir davon gar nicht so viel erfahren, muss ich ganz ehrlich gestehen. Hier vor Ort hat man davon nichts mitbekommen. Das Einzige, was wir erfahren haben, war direkt kurz nach dem Start, als jemand neben mir rief, der Außentank wird abgeworfen. Da dachten wir natürlich alle, es handelt sich dabei um den Außentank, der sowieso in der Erdatmosphäre verglüht, weil er ja so oder so nach den 8 Minuten nach der Startphase mit dem Tank, der Tank selber nicht mehr gebraucht wird. Dass aber noch ein großes Stück abgefallen ist, das haben wir selbst eben auch erst in der Pressekonferenz erfahren. Aber nichtsdestotrotz scheint es ja rein technisch so abgelaufen zu sein, dass das keine Konsequenzen zu haben scheint, wie uns ein weiterer Astronaut eben nach der Pressekonferenz erzählt hat, scheint das keine Konsequenzen zu haben auf den Wiedereintritt in die Erdatmosphäre nach dieser 12-tägigen Mission am 7. August.
Wie lange wird es denn dauern, bis die Leute von der NASA genau Bescheid wissen, ob dieses Teil, das abgebrochen ist vom Außentank, Schäden angerichtet hat am Shuttle oder nicht?
Ja, da müssen wir natürlich vertrauen, was uns die NASA-Techniker sagen. Alle halten ja grundsätzlich erstmal so zusammen, dass sie natürlich zuversichtlich auftreten. Ich könnte mir vorstellen, im Moment ist ja das Kontrollzentrum Houston, Texas, mit dieser gesamten Kontrolle des Shuttles beschäftigt. Man wird im Zweifel erst bei der Rückkehr, sprich vielleicht in spätestens 10 Tagen, wissen, was es genau war. Denn man hat auf dieser Mission ja unter anderem ein Projekt. Und das bedeutet, ein Roboterarm wird befestigt an diesem Shuttle außerhalb, um quasi während dieser 12-tägigen Mission zu überprüfen, ob es Beschädigungen an der Außenwand gab. An der Außenwand vor allem dieses Orbiters bzw. des Shuttles. Denn das ist ja das Wichtige. Hat womöglich dieser Außentank oder dieses Element des Außentanks, was runtergefallen ist, hat es womöglich wiederum die Raumfähre beschädigt, dann könnte es natürlich eine Konsequenz haben, spätestens beim Wiedereintritt in die Erdatmosphäre. Und das müsste eventuell jetzt über diesen Roboterarm geprüft werden. Wann wir das genau wissen, steht jetzt im Moment in den Sternen. Vielleicht erfahren wir das schon in den nächsten Tagen, sobald die Raumfähre angedockt ist an der ISS-Station. Vielleicht aber auch erst kurz vor dem 7. August, wenn das Shuttle wieder auf die Erde zurückkehren soll.
Vielen Dank nach Cape Canaveral. Unsere Reporterin Gesa Eberl war das. Dankeschön.
Ever since she was a little girl, she was enamored with discovery and adventure and that kind of thing, especially in the aviation sphere. And so that was her life and that was her career.
And your thoughts today of her? Was it a sad? Obviously, it's sad, but was there a sense of happiness as well that NASA, this extended family of yours, has been able to get back into orbit?
Of course, not just me, but all of the Columbia families are very happy that the Discovery is back in orbit, or the shuttle program is back on track. And it's just one of the things also that defines us.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on NASA and whether it has truly heeded the warnings which came out of Columbia? Do you think the agency has learned its lesson and will fly as safely as it can?
Of course, and I think that the current administrator, Dr. Mike Griffin, is the man to make it work properly. If he can't do it, no one can do it.
J.P. Harrison, widower of Kapalna Chavla, thank you very much for being with us. We appreciate it. Rosemary, this is just the beginning, of course, in a sense, and while we all sort of used to breathe a sigh of relief after the first 8.5 minutes and the shuttle got to orbit, we assumed it was safe after that. We now know in an ever so poignant way after 2.5 years ago that we'll all be holding our breath on landing as well. Rosemary?
All right, yes, certainly different stages of anxiety. Thanks for that, Miles O'Brien of the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Spectacular too to watch.
Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. 2,5 Jahre nach der Columbia-Katastrophe ist wieder eine US-Raumfähre im All. Das Space Shuttle Discovery hob am Nachmittag ohne Zwischenfälle vom Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral ab. Vor knapp 2 Wochen war der Start kurzfristig abgesagt worden. Die Discovery ist mit 7 Astronauten an Bord auf dem Weg zur internationalen Raumstation ISS.
3, 2, 1 and liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery.
Der NASA-Kommentator kann seine Freude kaum unterdrücken. Auf die Sekunde genau hebt die Discovery ab, von Florida hoch zur Raumstation ISS. Alles läuft planmäßig. Nach wenigen Minuten werden die Antriebsraketen und der Tank abgesprengt. Ein Bilderbuchstart bei strahlendem Sonnenschein, Applaus von den Zuschauern am Weltraumbahnhof Cape Canaveral, unter ihnen First Lady Laura Bush und ihr Schwager, Floridas Gouverneur Jeb Bush. Vom Erfolg der Mission hängt die Zukunft der amerikanischen Raumfahrt ab, heißt es. Trotz dieser Last auf ihren Schultern wirken die 7 Astronauten vor dem Start unbeschwert, winken in die Kameras. Vor 2 Wochen saßen sie schon einmal wie heute in ihren Sitzen. Ein defekter Treibstoffsensor ließ den Start platzen. Jetzt haben alle Instrumente ordnungsgemäß funktioniert, sagt die NASA und hofft, dass beim Start die Außenfläche des Space Shuttles unbeschädigt geblieben ist und dass nicht, wie beim Columbia-Absturz vor 2,5 Jahren, ein herumfliegendes Trümmerstück ein Loch ins Hitzeschutzschild gerissen hat. Die Bilder der Überwachungskameras seien zwar noch nicht ausgewertet, sagt der verantwortliche NASA-Direktor. Direkt nach dem Start hätten die Radaraufnahmen aber keine Risse in der Außenhaut gezeigt. Allerdings fiel ein größeres Bruchstück vom Außentank ab. Noch ist ungewiss, ob das Konsequenzen für die Mission hat. Die NASA steht mit dem Rücken zur Wand. Die Verantwortlichen wollten den Start scheinbar um jeden Preis durchziehen, um an die Erfolge früherer Jahre anzuknüpfen. Forschungsgelder stehen auf dem Spiel. Dabei ist das Ende des Space Shuttles längst besiegelt. In 5 Jahren soll es durch einen neuen Raumtransporter ersetzt werden.
Die Startrampe 39B hinter mir ist leer. Das ist ein gutes Zeichen. Die Discovery ist planmäßig gestartet. Ein Riesenerfolg für die NASA und ein beeindruckender Moment, der hier voller Begeisterung aufgenommen wurde. 1,4 Milliarden $ hat die NASA in die Sicherheitsmaßnahmen investiert, damit hier heute alles nach Plan läuft.
Well, with the weather and the fuel sensors cooperating, America returned to space on Tuesday with the launch of the Shuttle Discovery. However, video of what appeared to be some kind of debris falling off Discovery during launch prompted questions that NASA officials said they couldn't immediately answer. Here's Sean Calebs at Kennedy Space Center in Florida with more on the launch.
3, 2, 1. And liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery.
Joy and relief today for NASA after the first successful shuttle launch since the Columbia disaster in 2003. Faulty equipment forced NASA to delay its plans for 2 weeks, but Discovery lifted off without a hitch. NASA had more than 100 cameras trained on the shuttle during liftoff, including cameras in aircraft flying at 65,000 feet, as scientists and engineers monitored every detail to make sure there was no repeat of the Columbia disaster. Now, job one for the crew is to inspect the spacecraft for damage that may have occurred during liftoff. Leading the way is mission specialist Andy Thomas.
I have a number of responsibilities, but probably the most important one is to lead the inspections of the orbiter that we're going to do on the second flight day to ensure that it has not suffered any damage from any foam or debris during the launch phase.
That is just one of many new safety procedures the crew will test out, hoping to create new guidelines for future shuttle missions. Legions of space supporters as well as a crowd of media gathering to watch NASA return to flight after 2.5 years. A wait made even more agonizing by a 12-day delay with a faulty fuel sensor. But in the end, a picture-perfect launch. At the Kennedy Space Center, I'm Sean Calebs reporting.
Earlier, Zane Verjee spoke with astronaut Jim Riley just after the Discovery launch. Riley is a veteran of several previous missions.
To be able to get back to doing the assembly and the resupply for the space station, this is going to allow us to get back on the road to completing the space station as a laboratory in space that'll allow us to look at materials and processes that'll change the way we live here on Earth.
The crew itself has been waiting such a long time. The flight director said, you know, Godspeed, but guys, when you're up there, have a little bit of fun. What exactly will they be doing up there? I know that they will be testing some new safety features that have been installed since Columbia, right?
Indeed, the primary role of this particular mission is a resupply to the station. In the payload bay, they have the multi-purpose logistics module, which is built in Italy, and it's carried up with basically a lot of freight in it that's going to resupply the station as well as bring a lot of the equipment that's been up there on a one-way trip back home. And as part of that, they're also going to be repairing some of the control moment gyros, which are basically just big gyroscopes that control the station's attitude. And they're also going to be testing out some of the techniques that we will use, if we need to repair the thermal protection system, the RCC leading edges, the carbon-carbon leading edges, and the tile heat shields on the orbiter should we ever have to in the future.
We saw an amazing picture that we didn't think we would, the external fuel tank separating from the shuttle itself. Tell us a little bit about that and where the tank actually goes.
Yeah, that was a spectacular view. I wasn't real sure we were going to see it all the way through separation, but it was one of the best views I think I've ever seen of the whole launch sequence from that view, from looking above the orbiter back towards the Earth and down the length of the tank. Now the tank, once it separates, will go about 45 minutes until it gets about 2/3 of the way around the Earth and then it'll re-enter it in the southern Indian Ocean. Anything that survives re-entry, which is very little of the tank, will splash down in the ocean where there's no chance of hitting anybody.
How has the space program itself changed since the Columbia disaster?
I think one thing that we have to be reminded of quite often is that we have very narrow margins in the space program, and that we get reminded of that, and it basically changes our, if you will, the culture of NASA. We've had to be a lot more introspective about how we approach problems and engineering problems, and that was exactly what happened when we had the scrub 2 weeks ago. Was that was a good sign that this whole culture change that we've gone through over the last 2.5 years is working.
How much pressure was there on NASA to launch today?
Well, of course, we'd like to launch as soon as we could so we could get back into space with the shuttle and get back to the space station. But the way the whole protocol to decide whether we would scrub again today if we saw the same kinds of issues that we saw with the eco-sensors in the external tank 2 weeks ago was set up so that if we saw anything different that was completely, or that was different from the situation that we saw previously, we were going to automatically scrub. So that decision-making process was already written down and set up in an understood process that everybody had a chance to look at before we went to space today.
Astronaut Jim Riley there, speaking earlier with our own Zane Verjee.
Well, Business Today is next on CNN. Let's find out what's coming up in the program.
Todd and Becky in London.
And liftoff of Space
Diesmal lief
Shuttle
der Countdown perfekt. Pünktlich um 16:39 Uhr unserer Zeit hob das Space Shuttle Discovery zu seiner Mission ins All ab. 2,5 Jahre nach der Columbia-Katastrophe haben die USA damit die bemannte Raumfahrt wieder aufgenommen.
400 miles per hour.
Verehrte Zuschauer, guten Abend. Für die US-Raumfahrtbehörde NASA stand viel auf dem Spiel. Ein weiteres Desaster wie vor 2,5 Jahren, als die Columbia samt ihrer Besatzung in einem Feuerball aufging und verglühte, wäre womöglich auf lange Sicht das Ende des Projektes Space Shuttle gewesen. Doch heute gelang ein Bilderbuchstart. Über seinen Verlauf und Ziele der Mission berichtet Eva Maria Klass.
Die Erleichterung war riesig, der Jubel groß. Schließlich ging es um nichts weniger als um eine nationale Angelegenheit von eminenter Bedeutung. Und so war es auch nicht verwunderlich, dass die First Lady persönlich nach Cape Canaveral gekommen war, um den Start der Discovery mitzuerleben.
3, 2, 1 and liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery.
Wie im Bilderbuch hob das Space Shuttle pünktlich und bei strahlend blauem Himmel und totaler Windstille ab. 2 Minuten nach dem Start lösten sich die Feststoffantriebsraketen. Sie stürzten rund 200 Kilometer vor der Küste Floridas in den Atlantik. Exakt 6 Minuten und 40 Sekunden später erreichte die Discovery ihre Erdumlaufbahn. Auch wenn auf einigen Bildern vom Start zu sehen ist, wie sich beim Absprengen des externen Tanks ein Trümmerstück löst, bei der NASA ist man einfach ungemein erleichtert. Dass sich Material ablöse, sei nicht ungewöhnlich, heißt es dazu am Abend. Die Amerikaner sind zurück im Shuttleflug. Das ist einfach ein gewaltiger Schritt und es werden weitere folgen. Wir werden das Sonnensystem erforschen und zum Mond und zum Mars aufbrechen. Auf der 7-köpfigen Besatzung unter Kommandeurin Eileen Collins lastet ein ungeheurer Erwartungsdruck. Der gelungene Start ist psychologisch wichtig für die NASA, die durch den Absturz der Columbia Anfang 2003 in eine tiefe Krise geraten war. Aber auch die Zukunft der internationalen Raumstation, die auf die Versorgung durch die Space Shuttles angewiesen ist, hängt von einem erfolgreichen Neubeginn der bemannten US-Raumfahrt ab. Und dann sind da noch die ehrgeizigen Pläne von George W. Bush. Geht es nach dem Präsidenten, sollen 2020 Astronauten wieder zum Mond und auch zum Mars fliegen. Durch ein neues Shuttle-Unglück wäre das wohl mehr als in Frage gestellt.
Aus Berlin zugeschaltet begrüße ich Ulrich Walter, Professor für Raumfahrttechnik an der TU München. Schönen guten Abend.
Einen schönen guten Abend.
Professor Walter, Sie waren auch D2-Astronaut, also Sie waren schon im All. Was beschleichen Sie für Gefühle, wenn Sie diesen gelungenen Start sehen?
Nun, ich wäre gern mitgeflogen.
Fassen wir es ein bisschen weiter. Was macht den Start der Discovery so wichtig? Es hat immerhin 1,4 Milliarden Euro gekostet.
Nun, wir müssen die internationale Raumstation weiter aufbauen. Insbesondere das europäische Raumlabor, das sogenannte Columbus-Labor, muss unbedingt nach oben hin. Denn wir wollen ja die Wissenschaft im Weltraum machen. Deswegen brauchen wir das Shuttle. Es gibt kein anderes Transportmittel, das uns dieses Labor in den Weltraum bringen kann.
Dennoch 1,4 Milliarden, ein Haufen Geld. Als Kaufmann würde man fragen, wo bleibt die Rendite? Ist das eine falsch gestellte Frage?
Das ist absolut falsch. Es ist immer nur eine Frage des Wollens. Schauen Sie, mit den 6 Milliarden Euro, die wir als Deutschland für die Steinkohlesubvention ausgeben, damit könnten allein Deutschland eine Shuttleflotte unterhalten. Sie sehen daran, es ist nur das Wollen.
Dennoch die Frage, was für konkrete Ziele sind es? Was hat die Menschheit davon, wenn wir so viel Geld für Raumfahrt ausgeben?
Ja, zunächst erstmal ist es nicht viel. Es ist eben relativ wenig, will ich damit andeuten. Und was haben wir davon? Nun, wir haben neue Technologien. Wir haben zum Beispiel die Quarzuhr, die kommt aus der Raumfahrt. Wir haben GPS-Systeme, wir haben Satelliten, die uns das Fernsehen übertragen. Das sind so tolle Erneuerungen und Fortschritte für die Menschheit. Wir wissen es gar nicht mehr, dass wir wirklich davon leben, von dieser Raumfahrt. Und wir machen Wissenschaft. Das ist ein anderer wichtiger Punkt. Deswegen haben wir die internationale Raumstation. Wir können dort Materialien, wir können dort Medikamente wesentlich verbessern. Und mit dem Wissen, was wir dort gewinnen, damit gehen wir zurück auf die Erde und verbessern hier die Prozesse.
Nun gilt die Shuttle-Flotte dennoch als relativ alt. Wie lange müssen wir warten, bis da was Neueres kommt?
Nun, der Shuttle ist dafür gebaut, zur internationalen Raumstation hin und her zu fliegen. Deswegen heißt es übrigens Shuttle, ist sozusagen ein Bus. Und diese Arbeit verrichtet es eigentlich perfekt. Wenn wir jetzt allerdings zum Mond und zum Mars wollen, dann nützt uns der Shuttle überhaupt nichts. Das kann es nämlich nicht. Und deswegen brauchen wir neue Systeme. Die Amerikaner entwerfen neue, die Russen übrigens auch. Und ich denke, die Europäer werden sich hier wie dort vielleicht beteiligen. Und dann gehen wir zum Mond, um dort neue Technologien zu entwickeln, um sie zurückzubringen auf die Erde, damit es uns hier unten auch besser geht. Und langfristig wollen wir allerdings auch zum Mars.
Professor Walter, wenn Sie das jetzt gerade ansprechen, wenn das die Ziele der Menschheit sind, zum Mond und zum Mars, am Mond, wo wir übrigens schon mal waren, wird es da nicht Zeit, dass alle zusammenarbeiten? Sie sagen, die Russen entwickeln, die Amerikaner entwickeln, die Europäer beteiligen sich so ein bisschen. Muss man da nicht zusammenwerfen?
Ich gebe Ihnen vollkommen recht, Raumfahrt ist eine internationale Angelegenheit, da müssen alle Nationen mitarbeiten. Aber wir wissen aus der Vergangenheit, dass es ab und zu mal ganz gut ist, wenn es konkurrierende Situationen gibt, wo man sich gegenseitig anstachelt. Und damals war es in den 60er Jahren, war es ja so zwischen Amerikanern und Russen. Es hat so ein bisschen Wettlauf gegeben, so ein bisschen Konkurrenz ist immer gut, sonst wird man ein bisschen müde und faul. Und ich denke, es wäre gar nicht so schlecht, wenn es anfangs auch diese Konkurrenz zwischen Russen und Amerikanern beim Weg zum Mond gäbe.
Professor Ulrich Walter war das von der TU München. Herzlichen Dank.
Haben die Forscher, Techniker und Mitarbeiter im Astronautenzentrum lange gewartet. Nun fällt vielen ein Stein vom Herzen. Erst wenige Stunden vor dem Start hatte die NASA gemeldet, das Wetter ist gut, die Technik scheint es auch zu sein. Doch eine leichte Unsicherheit bleibt immer. Auch der deutsche Astronaut Gerhard Thiele hat den Start im ESA-Kontrollzentrum verfolgt.
Natürlich fiebert man bis zum letzten Moment mit. Und dann ist auch nur eine geringfügige Erleichterung erstmal da, weil mit dem Start alleine ist es ja nicht getan, sondern das müssen ja auch noch die nächsten 8,5 Minuten problemlos verlaufen. Als wir dann gehört haben, dass alle Systeme nominal arbeiten, dass auch die Voraussagen gut waren, da wird man dann doch zunehmend entspannter.
Der gelungene Start der amerikanischen Mission sorgte auch beim deutschen Zentrum für Luft- und Raumfahrt in Köln-Porz für Erleichterung.
Wir sind völlig abhängig im Augenblick von diesem Shuttle, vor allem was die europäische und den deutschen Anteil der bemannten Raumfahrt anbelangt, weil das sogenannte Columbus-Modul, das Raumlabor, das wir an die Raumstation andocken wollen, nur durch das Shuttle übertragen und transportiert werden kann.
Auch Lawrence Zart hat den Start der Discovery im Astronautenzentrum mit Spannung verfolgt. Sein Vater arbeitet beim DLR und für Lauren, den Raumfahrtfan, steht natürlich jetzt schon fest, was er mal werden wird.
Ich will Astronaut werden.
Warum möchtest du gerne Astronaut werden?
Einfach so. Ich finde es toll eben.
Und so sind alle von dem gelungenen Start begeistert. Denn mit der erfolgreichen Wiederaufnahme der Shuttle-Flüge ist der weitere Aufbau der internationalen Raumstation ISS gewährleistet.
Wie wichtig ist diese Discovery-Mission?
Also man kann die Bedeutung der Discovery-Mission wirklich nur sehr schwer überschätzen. Der NASA-Administrator Michael Griffin hat gesagt, sie zählt zu den 3 wichtigsten Missionen, die die NASA geflogen hat in der Geschichte des Shuttle. Und ich stimme ihm dazu, denn von dem erfolgreichen Abschluss dieser Mission wird abhängen, ob die NASA weiter am Aufbau der Raumstation arbeiten kann. Wir könnten das in 2, 3 Jahren mit einem guten Erfolg abschließen, wenn die heutige Mission erfolgreich zu Ende geführt wird.
Würde es ohne die NASA auch gehen?
Ohne die NASA würde das in dieser Form definitiv nicht gehen. Wir brauchen das Shuttle, um beispielsweise das Columbus, das europäische Modul, das von den Raumfahrtfirmen in Europa konzipiert und entwickelt worden ist, an Bord der Raumstation zu bringen. Das ist anders derzeit nicht vorstellbar.
Hoffen wir also, dass alles glatt geht. Vielen Dank für das Gespräch.
Bitte schön.
Ja, so ist der Mensch. Und ein wenig von dieser aufregenden Angst schwebte auch heute beim Start der Raumfähre Discovery mit. Vor 2,5 Jahren war die Columbia in der Atmosphäre verglüht. 7 Astronauten kamen ums Leben. Und jetzt war der Start der Discovery immer wieder verschoben worden, auch wegen eines technischen Fehlers. Also war die Spannung groß. Vom Start auf Cape Canaveral berichtet Michael Heusen.
Über Gewitter, Sandstürme und vor allem über defekte Treibstoffsensoren wurde in den letzten Tagen diskutiert. Doch diese Sorgen waren am Morgen in Florida wie verflogen. Die Discovery hebt auf die Sekunde genau ab zum Flug um die Erde zur Raumstation ISS. Ein Bilderbuchstart nach dem Geschmack der NASA. Return to Flight heißt die Mission. Wieder fliegen, raus in die Weiten des Alls. Doch auch diesmal gibt es eine Schrecksekunde. Die Antriebsraketen werden wie vorgesehen abgesprengt. Dabei aber löst sich ein großes Stück vom Außentank. Nach bisherigen Erkenntnissen hat es keinen Schaden angerichtet. Die NASA-Verantwortlichen warten auf die Auswertung der Bilder von über 100 Kameras, um diesen Vorfall bewerten zu können, wollen vorher nicht spekulieren. Wir werden alle Aufnahmen Einzelbild für Einzelbild durchgehen. Morgen werden wir Genaueres über den gesamten Start wissen. Die Astronautin Pam Malloy war 2-mal mit dem Space Shuttle im All, das letzte Mal kurz vor der Columbia-Katastrophe. Trotz des Todes ihrer 7 Kollegen vor 2,5 Jahren ist sie vom Erfolg der neuen Mission überzeugt. Meine Risikowahrnehmung hat sich nach dem Columbia-Unfall nicht geändert. Wir wissen, dass es eine gefährliche Sache ist, aber wir glauben, dass die ganze Mission, entdecken, forschen, arbeiten in einem internationalen Labor im All, dass es das wert ist. Aber es ist auch einfach fantastisch und macht Spaß, im All zu sein. Der Spaßfaktor kommt bei der NASA nicht zu kurz. Hawaii-Hemden beim Frühstück, der Kalifornier Steve Robinson spielt auf der Gitarre. Diese Freiheiten enden mit dem Anziehen der Raumanzüge. Steif und klobig starksen sie zum Bus, als spürten sie die Last, die auf ihren Schultern ruht. Denn diese Mission muss gelingen, sonst kann die NASA ihr Space-Shuttle-Programm einstellen und ein Nachfolger für die Raumfähre ist allerfrühestens in 5 Jahren startbereit. Wir freuen uns sehr auf den neuen Transporter. Ich bin selbst Testpilotin und kann es kaum abwarten, ihn endlich in die Finger zu bekommen. Aber nach 2 Flügen am Steuer des alten Space Shuttle kann ich Ihnen versichern, dass es ein hervorragendes Fahrzeug ist und sehr gut in Schuss. Es ist zwar vielleicht ein Oldtimer, aber es ist unser Baby und wir passen sehr gut drauf auf. Ein Oldtimer, ein Baby, das mit 29.000 Stundenkilometern die Küste Floridas hinter sich lässt. 12 Tage soll die Discovery die Erde umrunden und damit den Erfolg zur NASA zurückbringen.
Shuttle hob pünktlich um 16:39 Uhr mitteleuropäischer Zeit von Cape Canaveral ab und erreichte wenig später die Erdumlaufbahn. Allerdings soll auch diesmal nicht alles ganz glatt gegangen sein. Ein wichtiges Teil soll sich beim Start gelöst haben. Die Konsequenzen sind noch unklar.
3, 2, 1 and liftoff of Space Shuttle Discovery.
Ein großer Tag in Cape Canaveral. Endlich ist die Discovery ins All gestartet. Die Probleme mit den Treibstoffsensoren, die vor 2 Wochen den Start verhindert hatten, sind nicht mehr aufgetreten. Doch ein großes Stück vom Außentank ist abgebrochen. Die NASA warnt jetzt vor Panikmache, freut sich über den Erfolg und weiß, dass das noch nicht alles ist. Wir haben noch ein bisschen was zu tun. Wir müssen die Crew sicher wieder nach Hause bringen und ich kann Ihnen gar nicht sagen, was dieser Tag heute für mich bedeutet. Am 7. August soll die Discovery wieder auf unserem Planeten landen. Und nicht nur im Kontrollzentrum hoffen alle, dass der Hitzeschutzschild hält, damit das Shuttle nicht wie die Columbia vor 2 Jahren beim Eintritt in die Atmosphäre verglüht. Am Donnerstag soll die Discovery an die Raumstation ISS andocken und sie mit Wasser versorgen. Eine Mission, bei der alles stimmen muss. Ich möchte Sie daran erinnern, was es bedeutet, Millionen von Einzelteilen und tausende Arbeiter so zusammenzubringen, dass das, was Sie heute gesehen haben, funktioniert. Und daran, wie risikoreich, aber auch wie primitiv diese Technik immer noch ist. Die 7-köpfige Discovery-Crew, an der Spitze die weltraumerfahrene Kommandantin Collins, fliegt ohnehin in einem Shuttle, das zu einer Generation von Auslaufmodellen gehört. Neue Raumfähren sind schon in der Entwicklung und mit diesen sollen die Astronauten dann zum Mars fliegen können.
Wir sind gestern Abend in Cape Canaveral angekommen.
Hier ist vor dem Start heute schon einiges los. Aber mein Vater und mein Bruder schlafen noch. Also dachte ich, spaziere ich doch mal zum nächsten Andenkenstand, um meiner Nichte und meinem Neffen was Schönes zu kaufen. Einmal Astronauten-Eiscreme, aber nicht so schweineteure.
1 oder 2?
2. Jetzt bin ich der bessere Onkel. Und Karten für meinen spielsüchtigen Bruder. Die Ankunft der Astronauten animierte mich, dass ich plötzlich allen was kaufte. Und 2 von den schwarzen Captain Cappies da drüben. Die setzen wir heute auf.
Oh man.
Die sind scharf. Meine Großzügigkeit sollte meine faulen Verwandten in Space Shuttle Stimmung bringen. Ich habe eingekauft. Cappies für Steve und mich. Dann noch dämliche T-Shirts für die Kinder. Und das ist erst lässig. Für dich, weil du so gern Karten spielst. Und Astronauten-Eiscreme? Am Andenkenstand gab es Astronauteneis. Das wollte ich schon immer mal probieren.
Was zum Henker ist das?
Lass das mal rumgehen.
Ich dachte erst mal die Fußnägel. So schmeckt's jedenfalls.
Du spinnst doch.
Muss da nicht erst Wasser dran? Nein, Idiot. Das ist gefriergetrocknet. Ich kaufte genug davon, um den ganzen Clan dran teilhaben zu lassen.
Danke, Mikey. Bin am Verhungern.
Los, Jungs. Gleich ist der Start.
Zum Glück brachte uns Gary von der NASA zu einem guten Aussichtspunkt. Dafür, dass für ihn als hohes NASA-Tier bei dem Start so viel auf dem Spiel stand, wirkte er erstaunlich gelassen. Der Brummer hebt gleich ab.
Nach dem Start werden Sie endgültig wissen, worum es uns mit dem Bike geht.
Gleich machen wir uns in die Hose.
Wahrscheinlich.
Da kann man Fernsehen, solange man will. Hier ist es noch mal ganz was anderes. Hoffentlich gefällt es den Jungs auch. So etwas haben sie jedenfalls noch nie erlebt.
Das Space Shuttle abheben und den Flammenschweif von so nah zu sehen, das war schon phänomenal. Und der Lärm wurde immer lauter. Es war unglaublich.
Ich bin immer noch ganz weg. Ich stehe völlig neben mir, so beeindruckend war das. Dass da richtige Menschen drin sind, Astronauten, die ins All fliegen. Klar, das weiß man ja, aber man begreift es erst richtig, wenn man es hier miterlebt. Das ist eine echte Erfahrung. Unglaublich.
Start weiterhin planmäßig. Gegenwärtige Höhe 14 Kilometer.
14 Kilometer. Das Ding steigt. Jetzt mit Kurve. War das genial.
Man fühlt sich echt klein. Man steht hier unten und weiß, das war eine einmalige Erfahrung. Und es war klasse zu sehen, wie Gary sich über den gelungenen Start freute. Wenn man so etwas erlebt, ist man einfach stolz, ein Amerikaner zu sein.
We did receive television of opening of the payload bay doors, via a electronics systems test laboratory here at the Johnson Space Center. It just so happened that Discovery was passing within range of the tracking communications network at JSC during the time of the opening of the payload bay doors. And this is a live television view from cameras on the International Space Station. The station at an altitude of 225 statute miles approximately. The destination for Discovery now, as over the next 2 days, Discovery will slowly close in on the complex, planned to dock with the station at about 6:18 a.m. Central Time on Thursday.
In Houston, Discovery, lab test is complete and good. OIU activation is in work. Step 3 only.
Copy, we understand. And while I got you, Eileen, from the launch team down here, we have a lot of smiling, happy faces now that the United States is back in the crew launch business. There's some thrilled folks all the way around the world on the launch team, and we appreciate all the work you've done. Tony and Julie are ready to take over and bring you through the Orbit 2 shift.
Well, those are some great words to hear, Ken. We know that the folks back on the planet Earth are just feeling great right now, and our thanks to everybody for all the super work that's been done over the past 2.5 years to get us flying again. And I do want to pass on, from those of us who have flown before, that was by far the smoothest ascent through first stage and up to MECO that we've ever experienced. And the great weather and everything put together, nice ascent with no malfunctions, couldn't ask for a better flight. So thanks to everybody down there on the ascent team, and we're looking forward to seeing you in 12 or 13 days for the entry and landing.
And you got it, Eileen. We'll bring you home safe then.
Discovery Houston for CCTV.
Julie, bonjour from Orbit. It's Steve. Go ahead.
Steve, bonjour. How you doing? Hey, we have a heads up for you. In 15 minutes from now at 0301, we'll have Dryden video available. And if you wish, you can set up a camera in the flight deck and we can downlink it. So it's at 0301.
0301, and Suichi is in work on that right now. And to answer your question, we are all doing absolutely fantastic. It is just beautiful to be up here with Discovery, and thank you all.
Hello, Suichi. Hello, everybody. We have good flight deck video from Discovery in space. We have 3 minutes of KU. Hi, Steve. Eileen, how do you do? And Steve, if you can make a sign with your hand, which AVI unit was it? We can actually hold it up and show it to you. It looks like it was the AVIU. And good. Which? It was the one still in the go box. And you can thank Suichi for his quick work there. Thank you, Suichi. Arigato.
Currently receiving live downlink television from the aft flight deck of the Space Shuttle Discovery. Commander Eileen Collins reporting that the crew is doing well on orbit, and that Suichi Noguchi, the Japanese astronaut, was the first to locate a problem with one of the cables that was preventing them from sending down this video. Again, the video coming down to us briefly as we have contact with the ground station at the Dryden Flight Research Center in California. Steve Robinson on your left. Jim Kelly, known as Vegas, in the center of your screen. Kelly continuing with his preparations to activate the shuttle's robotic arm and put it through the initial checkout procedures, and also take a close look at clearances between the newly installed orbiter boom sensor system and the KU band antenna system on the same side of the payload base sill. Commander Eileen Collins in the lower right-hand portion of your screen.
Okay, well, we have a short statement for return to flight, and the return to flight teams and the shuttle program that we'd like to read. Eileen, everybody's listening, and we'd love to hear your statement. Thank you, Julie. On the evening of our first day in space, aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery, the STS-114 crew would like to send our thanks to the teams who've worked so hard over the past 2.5 years to return the fleet to orbit. Our thanks go out to all the managers, the engineers, the technicians, and everyone. Give yourself a pat on the back. This is work well done. As our crew looks back at our beautiful planet and then outward towards the unknown of space, we feel the importance, today more than any time, of space exploration to all those who are living on Earth. Our flight is the next flight of many in the human exploration of the universe. And finally, we reflect on the last shuttle mission. The great ship Columbia and her inspiring crew, Rick, Willie, Mike, Casey, Dave, Laurel, and Elon. We miss them, and we are continuing their mission. God bless them tonight, and God bless their families. Good night.
Thank you, Eileen, and the STS-114 crew. We miss them too. That's all for us, unless you have any further question. We'd like to bid you a very restful night, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow for a full day. But again, congratulations on getting everything done and everything ready on this very memorable flight day 1 of Return to Flight. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome to this mission status briefing for STS-114. We're glad to have you with us. To my left, we have Phil Ingloff, who is the STS-114 Mission Operations Representative, and to his left, John Shannon, the Manager of the Space Shuttle Flight Operations and Integration. And John will has a few visuals, but first we'll hear from Phil as a representative of Mission Operations.
Thanks. It's a real pleasure to be over here again addressing folks on the fact that we are back flying in space. It's been a long time since we've done this. We've had a flight control team and a lot of support personnel who have worked extraordinarily hard over the last couple of years to get us back to this point. And we couldn't have asked for a better day today. From the minute we came in support of launch, through the ascent today and through the crew's first few hours on orbit, everything has really gone extremely well. The crew's performed well, the flight control team has performed well, and the vehicle has performed exceptionally well also. We had a little bit of a busy day today, as is going to be the case throughout this mission. You saw a press conference earlier talking about the flight and the launch today, and I think it was stressed that getting up into space is the beginning of the mission. There are still 12 long days ahead, with a great deal of work, a very aggressive timeline, and a lot of action to fit into that 12-day period. The team is looking forward to the mission and ready to go, and everything today went extremely well, set us up for a good day tomorrow. The vehicle, as I said, is very, very healthy, and we're looking to hit the ground running after crew wake up tomorrow with the inspection activities and early parts of the rendezvous. That's all I got to start with, John.
Okay, good afternoon. The engineering team is hard at work, as is the ops team. Right now, the team is processing through the radar data that was taken during ascent. If you remember, we had 3 different radars that were watching the vehicle. We're going frame by frame, as Wayne Hale said this morning, through the imagery, both the on-vehicle imagery and the ground imagery that we obtained. We've just gotten the WB-57 video in, and the team is looking at that. And this is early in a 6-day process. Tomorrow we're going to get the external tank umbilical well photos. Today we saw the amazing video of the shuttle as it left the external tank, and we saw it from the external tank side. Tomorrow we'll get the imagery from the shuttle side, watching the external tank, and we're very interested in that. As well as when the crew flipped the orbiter around and took some handheld photos of the external tank. So we think we'll get a better understanding of the condition of the tank, of how effective the changes that we made in the redesign of the tank were, and we're looking forward to those. Wing leading edge sensor data comes down later today and tomorrow, and it will be processed. We'll start our boom operations tomorrow and start taking a good look at the wing leading edge. We'll do the rotational pitch maneuver during rendezvous on flight day 3 and get really high resolution pictures of the underside of the vehicle. We'll recover the solid rocket booster video. If you remember, there are cameras on the solid rocket boosters that look at the external tank, and they start filming as soon as we separate, and we'll get some more good pictures of the external tank from those, especially the inner tank flange area where we've lost foam in the past, and we think we have a fix for that, so we'll be very interested in getting that recovered SRB video. And then the ops team will work hand in hand with the engineering team in any areas of interest on the vehicle we need to go look at further. We'll do that on flight day 4. So the message here is that we all saw some amazing ground imagery. We saw some amazing video from the camera that's on the external tank, but it's a very small piece of the overall set of engineering data that we'll have to go assess and understand the environment and both the vehicle performance in that environment. We should remember that this is a test flight, and we're seeing areas of the vehicle working in flight regions that we have never seen before. On STS-112, we had the ascent imagery from the tank, but at SRB separation, the separation motors covered up the lenses, and you really couldn't get any more data on that. So everything beyond SRB separation, that was all new to us. We've never seen the underside of the orbiter like that, especially at separation. That video, frankly, exceeded our expectations. We did not expect to have such clarity, and a lot of that is because of the way the launch window was set up by the ops team to get the proper daylight. If you remember when we were discussing launch window, we had a lot of discussions about daylight and lighting, and that really helped us, I think, in the data we got from that camera. And that's allowed the damage assessment teams and the debris assessment teams that we've set up to go through all this data a head start. Frankly, we did not expect to have that much information until we did the rotational pitch maneuver on flight day 3, but they're able to take a look at that. And I'm going to show you a couple things that they're looking at. I don't have any conclusions because, like I said, we're in the first half day of a 6-day activity, and we're going to get better data, but I want to show you some of the things we're looking at. If we could show the first still, please. This was developed by the Marshall. We have imagery teams at Kennedy Space Center, Marshall Space Center, and Johnson Space Center, and they're all individually looking at the same footage and coming to conclusions about it. And this is just kind of interesting from a few different reasons. What you're looking at, of course, is the bipod area, and those two rectangular shapes in front of it are the nose landing gear door. And what looks like happened is that first little white spot is where a piece of tile may have sheared and part of it came off. And actually the second arrow, the one to the left, is pointing at that piece of tile as it flies by. This is one frame from the video. And why don't we go ahead and show the video, and as you look at it, you can see that white spot appears on the nose landing gear door, and you'll see the white spot of that tile. There it is, and then it goes away, which we think in the next frame is, of course, that's just going away. The radar guys are working very hard to try and make sure that they can see that piece of tile, if that's what it is, as it departs the vehicle. And so we're very interested in that. So, you know, that's something that we're going to get better pictures of on flight day 3, and if the engineering team needs it, then we'll be able to go look at that with the boom if required, and further assess in 3D. We have the tools and the capability and the processes on this flight to really understand what the condition of the vehicle is, and we fully expect to use those. The second video I'm going to show you got some questions this morning. I don't have a lot of answers, but we think it's very interesting. Why don't we go ahead and show the still first here of this. The big question is, what is that? You can see that the solid rocket booster has already separated, and shortly after separation, you see something out there, and it's kind of hard to tell if it's a bigger piece far away or a smaller piece close in. There are some reports that we saw a fairly similar piece on the other side of the vehicle after SRB separation. So we've got a lot of data to collect. This is where the cameras we have on the SRBs and the footage that we'll shoot from that we've shot and that we'll downlink from the ET umbilical well will become very handy in showing us, did you lose some foam off the external tank? Was this something else that we don't understand? Why don't we go ahead and show the video? I think the video is pretty interesting. You can see that the SRB is already gone, and then it just looks like something peels off and goes away. Now, it does not hit the orbiter. It looks like it clears the whole stack with no problems, but of course we're very interested in understanding what this is. You know, this is a region that we have never seen before. We've never had this kind of footage in this flight region. This may be something, once we understand what it is, that has happened on every flight. This may be a new occurrence. We just don't know. I am very confident that after we get through our additional data collection and we use our other resources and we go through it, that we're going to have a good feel for what it is. But right now, it's not explained, and we need to go and understand that. Again, this is why we were so strict on this flight to go launch in the daylight, to go spend the time required to make sure that we had the right cameras on the external tank so that we can see things like this. We were knocked in the past for thinking that we knew more about the ascent and the entry environment than we really knew, than we really had real flight data from, and we've worked very hard over the past 2+ years to rectify that and to get more data. Let's see, a couple more things I'm going to show you, and these are just kind of interesting things that I thought were out there. Why don't we show the next still? These are Tyvek covers. Really what they are is the covers over the forward RCS thrusters to keep rainwater out, keep environmental contamination from getting in there. They have a little parachute on them, and as the vehicle lifted off, just like they're supposed to, they peeled off the vehicle. And what the purpose of this was, if you remember the pre-flight briefings, is to get those covers off at a low enough speed, early enough in the ascent profile, as opposed to the paper, which we think was coming off at much higher speeds and impacting the windows, and it could get up underneath the seal of that window. So we think the Tyvek covers work pretty well, and we're going to go through the imagery and verify what the trajectory was and make sure that they behaved the way they were supposed to. But we got some good footage of that. The last one is kind of interesting. Why don't you show the next one? It looks like we hit a bird. You can see and this is a good example of the enhanced imagery we have and the different angles we have of the vehicle. You can see that the tower is in the background of this picture. So this was very early in flight. They were saying about 2.5 seconds into flight, and it looks like as we were lifting off, one of the birds out by the pad did not get out of the way, and we hit it, and it came down the side of the tank. But more will come on that story. This is at such a low speed. We had talked about this, and the thought was that if you did hit a bird, you know, they don't fly at altitudes where you're going fast enough to cause any kind of damage. But I'm sure we will readdress that question and investigate it further in the coming days. I didn't come in with a lot of answers today. I came in with trying to send the message that this is a test flight, and we're very early in the 6-day process. We're going to share that with you as we go through it. We're not going to keep data behind closed doors and try to understand it fully before we bring it out. We're going to have you walk the trail with us, and we're going to bring the information in as we know it, and let you share in it. And Steve, that's all I have today.
Okay, thank you, John. We'll take questions here at JSC first, and then we have media at KSC also. When the mic comes to you, please state your name and affiliation.
Peterson with Florida Today. Do you know what size the small piece might be off that came off the bottom that seemed to be what you said was a piece of tile shearing away? How small or large might that be?
It's very hard to tell from that video. That the tile we think it came in that area is about an 8.5-inch wide tile, and the guess, and that's all it is right now, was about 1.5 inches. We don't know how deep it was, and you know, this is we're sharing early information, knowing that when we get photographs from the ISS, and then if we choose to look at this with the boom, we'll really characterize it, and we'll be able to show you a point cloud of exactly how big the damage is. That information is coming up in the coming days. So the guess right now is about 1.5 inches. It's interesting, and we will we'll end up passing that to the ISS crew to make sure that we really concentrate in that area. Okay, you do a follow-up.
And a follow-up, is that something that could be repaired, and would you have to discuss with the crew whether they would be willing to fly back on a repaired tile?
Yeah, that is way premature to even talk about that right now. We have different repair capabilities on the orbiter. The crew has practiced extensively with them. We'll understand what the condition of the vehicle is and make the appropriate judgments, and we'll share those, and the crew is an active participant in all those discussions. Yes.
I'm Cindy Jamil with the San Antonio Express News. Go back to the Tyvek covers. Do you think does that explain the reports of some people who said that there were things falling off the shuttle at liftoff?
It might. Certainly the covers are designed to come off at a low speed just after tower clear. We expect those covers to come off and fall from the vehicle. We will know in 2 days everything that fell off the vehicle, any frost or covers or anything else, and we'll be able to give you a very intelligent discussion at that point of exactly everything that happened all through ascent. As you could tell from some of the limited video that we had today, that we have invested a significant amount of resources in understanding how this vehicle performs. And as we go through that data, we'll share it with you. Okay, Bruce.
Bruce Nichols, Dallas Morning News. 2 questions really. The tile shearing, can that happen without being struck by ice or some other kind of debris? And how would that work? And then the second thing is, do you have suspicions as to what that larger piece that came off of the tank might be?
The first question on the tile, and there is load that is put on that area. Of course, there are little steps between tiles, and there's gap fillers put in there. It's too early to speculate if it. We have lost. I will tell you this too. We believe we have lost small pieces of tiles in the past without having impact damage, just from shear loads or stress on that tile. It's too early to tell if that's what happened. As far as what that is off the external tank, I don't know. I'm very much looking forward to or even if it came from the external tank, I very much am looking forward to the external tank photos that we get that I think will shed a lot more light on that.
Andy Vitag, Fuji Television. The second video of what you were just talking about seemed to be a larger piece. Is there any way to tell how dangerous that could have been had it hit the shuttle wing?
You know, with the one aspect that we had, you can't really tell if it's a small piece close to you or a large piece far away, and you don't know what the material is, so it would be pure speculation. It would be worse than that, to try and characterize it. But once we understand what it is, then we'll be able to answer that question, I believe. Okay, right here.
Eric Berger with the Houston Chronicle. Is it safe to say that the most concerning image would be the first one of the tile, because that was directly on the orbiter? And I guess the second question would be, talk a little bit about how you lose tile in a lot of missions with the shuttle, and how it wouldn't, you know, losing a 1.5 inch piece of tile or thereabouts, it may not be so dangerous.
What I can do is give you the characterization of the debris assessment team that goes and looks at the vehicle after every flight, and they said just based on what we got from the camera on the external tank, this was an extremely clean flight. Levels of concern, you know, concern doesn't really, is not the right word. We are going to seek to understand any instances that we have of tile loss, no matter how small. We'd like to eliminate it. We did not come into this flight expecting to eliminate it all, but we knew that we had the tools available to us to characterize it. And I think this will be an attrition basis kind of thing. We may see something, and that may improve our processes so that we can go and reduce tile loss or any debris generation. So the reason we're flying this flight, the reason we're flying the next flight, we're putting them in the daylight, we're carrying all the tools, we're spending that on-orbit time to do all the inspection, to take all the photography, is to characterize the vehicle, and that is our #1 goal, and that's what we're heavily engaged in right now. Yeah, this gentleman in the white shirt back here.
Patricia Espinosa, Univision Houston. How small or how big does a tile have to be before the astronauts have to go outside and make a repair?
That is, I wish I could give you one tile dimension, but of course it makes a huge difference where it is on the vehicle. Different tiles are different thicknesses on different parts of the vehicle. Different areas of the vehicle see a different heating profile during entry. All I can tell you is that we have developed the tools and we verified them against real flight damage we've seen in the past, so that if we get any damage, we will characterize it with the boom sensor system. We can go run it on that tool and see if it is something that would require repair. And then you get into the point of you have numerous different repair options. And those tools can go assess those different repair options to see if you've maintained your margin of safety. Besides the tool, we can also mock up any kind of tile damage that we might see and go over to the ArcJet facility and put it through the same thermal environment as you would see during entry and see what the response is. Okay. Oh, you want to follow up? Okay, I'm going to take the lady right there.
Just a quick follow-up. If a repair is needed, at what point would you have to make a decision whether a repair is not possible and what comes next? Are we talking about a rescue mission then?
Yeah, we're really getting far ahead of ourselves here, but that's okay. This is the way it will lay out, and again, we'll bring you right along with us, is if we see any tile damage or RCC damage that we're concerned about on Flight Day 4, we'll go get the additional data needed to characterize that damage. By Flight Day 6, we would have a decision on whether any repair was required or if any kind of repair was not feasible. So we're gonna methodically, and I'm not saying it is or isn't at this point. We're gonna walk through this methodically. We're gonna take the data that we've set up. We're gonna go through the processes we've set up, and we'll share that data as we get there. Personally, I feel very good about where we are in this mission right now. We're going to go and we're going to collect the data and understand it, and I think we're going to have a good flight test here. Okay.
My name is Jenny Blankenship, and I'm a reporter for the CBS television station in Austin, KI. And I was wondering if, just to give us a better visual than the close-up picture we saw up here on the big screen, could you please use your model of the space shuttle to demonstrate exactly where you believe this tile fell off?
I don't know if I can take the orbiter off of this thing. No. No. There's right up here at the very top of the orbiter, there's two doors that open like a clamshell. They open like this, and lets the nose landing gear deploy. And around those doors are two redundant thermal seals. And it looks like on the right-hand side of that clamshell, on the aft part, it looks like we're missing about 1.5 inches. We're going to be very interested to see if that is real tile loss, if it's butted up against the thermal barrier. That'll all be more data that we learn. Matter of fact, we did not expect to get any of this data from this external tank camera, and it's just a bonus and has let us start a little bit early in our process. Okay, seeing no other questions here, we'll go to KSC for some questions. I understand we have media there, and then we'll come back to JSC.
This is Mike Cabbage with the Orlando Sentinel for John. Just from sort of a big picture standpoint, can you characterize for us whether you consider, based on your admittedly limited knowledge so far, whether any of these things are safety of flight issues. I mean, it seems the one big piece seemed to miss the shuttle altogether. The other, the bird strike was, I don't think you guys had even cleared the tower. Do you see any of these things as potentially safety threatening?
It's too early. I have to understand exactly what we have, and as I've said, we're going to walk through the process very methodically. So, you know, we're going to learn more as we go through this process.
And a quick follow-up from me. Talk, if you would, about how important this makes the OBSS survey tomorrow and the subsequent heat shield inspections that you guys are going to be doing in the next few days.
Well, of course, the way the timeline is set up is that we're going to go and look at the reinforced carbon-carbon wing leading edge and the nose cap tomorrow with the boom and the lasers. That's because it's very difficult to look at those while we're docked to the International Space Station. There's just not enough clearance for the arm. So I do not expect that we will go and look at the nose landing gear tomorrow with the boom. What I would expect is that the ops team will go develop the arm movements that are required to go look at any areas of interest that we find over the next couple of days. And then on flight day 4, we'll go assess those areas in much greater detail. So tomorrow will be. I don't want you to think that we're going to react today to anything that we saw on the Ascent video and go hurry up and go look at that. Again, we're going to move very methodically and go collect the correct engineering data in the proper sequence and distill it down to what we need to know. And tomorrow is wing leading edge and nose cap. And flight day 3, we will get a much better understanding of the condition of the tile area of the vehicle. And on the night of flight day 3, we'll take that data and we'll be able to go determine where we want to go look on flight day 4. So tomorrow's RCC, it's the wing leading edge and the nose cap. Flight day 3, when we get the pictures from the International Space Station crew, that'll give us the plan for how we're going to go look at tile on flight day 4, and then we'll take that data and run it through our models and see if we have any problems or if we're good to go.
Bill Harwood, we expand on that just a little bit. As John indicated, much of the data that we are getting today about the condition of the orbiter really is serendipity. These cameras were really not designed to be the principal source of information about the condition of the tile or the leading edge, and it doesn't change the operational philosophy. The inspections that we had planned for tomorrow and during the dock period of time really are the principal sources of information for characterizing the surface of the vehicle. And so what we've learned about what possible impacts we might have had today doesn't change the lack of knowledge about the rest of the vehicle. So it's we still have the same level of importance or emphasis on getting that same collected data in the subsequent days. This is really just additional data above and beyond the original plan.
Bill Harwood with CBS News for John Shannon. Just a quick clarification for me. I was under the impression that the maximum allowable damage of the landing gear door thermal seal on a tile was 1 inch, and that anything above that was something that was absolutely a candidate for repair if not required. I'm obviously mistaken based on what you just said, but could you clarify what that minimum criteria is when you're talking landing gear door seal areas? Thanks.
Sure. There's a difference between main landing gear and nose landing gear door seals. There's a redundant seal in the nose landing gear. But Bill, what you're referring to with the 1 inch criteria was our inspection criteria. It is what we wanted to be capable of taking pictures of from the ISS in order to go assess. It is not that simple that you say, hey, if it's more than 1 inch, you got to go repair it. We want to be able to see anything that's more than 1 inch because that's a very conservative requirement that we need to go and look further at. And the other limit that you might have heard was 3 inches, and that's just an acreage tile anywhere. So basically what the team did is they said if it's below 1 inch, even if it's right on a seal, that is no big deal to us, and we don't really care. If it's more than 1 inch, we want to go look at it more closely, which if this is more than 1 inch or if it's up on the seal, we're going to go do that. But we'll get that data from the pictures from the ISS guys on flight day 3, and then move out from there.
This is Stephen Young with SpaceflightNow.com. Would it be fair to say that this is one of the more sensitive areas on the orbiter around the landing gear seal area? Is this kind of a worse place for you to be hit?
Certainly, you're much more concerned about areas, yes, that have seals in them, that are mold line breaks. That's why we set the more stringent criteria to be able to inspect along the seal areas of 1 inch, whereas 3 inches is good everywhere else in the vehicle. So just like I had said before, we're going to look really closely at this, and if it's something that we need to go look at on flight day 4, then I'm sure we'll go do that.
And I'm wondering if you could put these incidents into some kind of historical perspective. I mean, obviously you've got more attention on debris, you've got more assets looking for debris, but how do these events, the bird strike, the piece coming off the ET, the tile damage, how do they fit in with your history with the vehicle as far as damage?
Well, like I said, Stephen, we are getting information on the environment and the vehicle performance in regions that we've never had before because of the additional camera views, the additional sensors, and all of those things. I fully expected that we would see things that we hadn't seen in the past. I know John Murtor's said numerous times, we're going to see debris, you know, just understand that, and we need to characterize where it's coming from. Again, you know, I am not going to sit in here and sugarcoat anything. What I'm going to tell you is that where we are in the analysis, and that's very early, the team has looked at some data, and they said this is interesting on the nose landing gear door, and we want to understand what the condition of the external tank was. But again, you know, I don't think history. In the past, you saw the history of what the vehicle looked like after reentry. You had things that were kicked up by wheels. You had all kinds of different things. We're kind of trying to start over here and set our criteria to make sure that we understand how the vehicle performs. And we're getting a lot of new data, and we're going to go through it and process it and try to understand it.
Kelly Young with New Scientist. I need a little clarification here. I heard Capcom tell the crew about 2 separate debris events, one of which was observed through radar, and I was not clear which event they were referring to there.
Did you hear what this one?
I believe that the tile chip that John referred to was also observed in the radar data, and the first reports that we got back were of the radar sighting, and then they confirmed that based on the timing when they looked back at the ascent video. When we informed the crew, we told them 1 in the radar and 1 in the ET video, but in fact we saw both of them because when we went back, the tile chip was also in the video, but our first clue was in the radar data.
Hi, it's Audrey Raval from the BBC. To follow up on an earlier question, in terms of the different areas of the actual orbiter, how would you characterize this area where the tile has come off in terms of keeping intact the integrity of the orbiter? And as of right now, it seems to me that you're not planning on changing any kind of goals that you have for the next 3 or 4 days. Is that right, in terms of carrying out different kinds of lab missions and things like that because of this tile loss? Is that correct?
Okay, apparently I miscommunicated. We have not, as far as we know, we have not lost a tile. What this is that we can see some white spot, and if you remember, the tile has a black coating over the white tile. We can see an area on a tile that's about the size of a sheet of paper, about 1.5 inches wide. It looks like it's showing white. We don't know depth. It could be just the top black coating has come off. So we have not lost a tile. We may have lost a piece of a tile. We're going to know that better after the Flight Day 3 pictures, and if we go and assess it further with the boom, we'll know that. I forgot the second question.
Well, you went back into the whether this changes the operational philosophy over the next couple of days, and again, the answer to that is no. The inspections that we will do with the boom, the OBSS for the leading edge of the wing, the rendezvous pitch maneuver that we do to survey the tile on the underside of the orbiter will give us much better resolution on those areas than this ascent video did. Again, the data that we're gleaning here from these ET photography are really serendipity for us. The principal intent for surveying those areas are in the procedures in the coming days, and this doesn't change our philosophy. We still need to go do those and look not only in these areas where we might have some hints of things to look at, but also to the rest of the orbiter to find any evidence that we might not have gotten from this ET photography. So it is still just as important to look at the rest of the vehicle and stick to the original procedures and the original surveys. That's where the real data is going to come from.
Right. We called this 100% inspection back when the ops team was putting their plan together, and they've done an outstanding job of putting together a very comprehensive plan that the crew is very well trained in, that covers every inch of the vehicle to the fidelity that we need to understand any RCC or tile damage. So we're going to work through the plan and see where it takes us, and we all feel very comfortable with the level of coverage that we're going to get with that.
Hi, Ralph Vardavidian from the Los Angeles.
KSC, and then we'll come back here and try and wrap it up.
Okay, this is Ralph Vardavidian from the Los Angeles Times. I was wondering if you could tell me how thick is the tile in that area where you have sustained the gouge. Can you tell me, do you have any indication of how deep the gouge is? And is the depth of the gouge important, and is the fact that you've lost the surface, the black surface treatment, relevant?
I do not know how thick the tile is there, but we'll get you that information. It's readily available. Depth is everything when you look at any kind of tile damage at all. Very shallow damage is of really no concern. That's why we have the boom. It can very well characterize what the depth of any damage is, and we'll understand what the depth is, and then we'll play that against what the tile thickness is, and we'll be able to do the thermal analysis required to fully understand it.
Just a quick follow-up. You don't at this time know or have any estimate of how deep that gouge is? Thank you.
See, that's the problem with something that's white is you can't tell, and that's why we had to develop the boom with the laser sensors that gives you, it's basically a depth finder, and as the laser sweeps over it, it tells you exactly what the depth is across any damage at all. And so if there's any question that this is a concern, then we'll have the crew on Flight Day 4, as we've said, take the boom and characterize the depth perfectly, and then we'll be able to put that in our models and understand what we have.
Okay, we'll come back here to Johnson Space Center in Houston for a few wrap-up questions. Bruce.
Bruce Nicholas with the Dallas Morning News again. I think I heard you say, Mr. Shannon, that even with these pictures showing some events today, that this is an extremely clean, in your opinion, extremely clean launch. Did I hear that correctly?
What I said was that the debris assessment team, based on the very cursory look from the feed line camera, said it looked like it was a very clean underside of the vehicle. There are some things we don't understand. I do not understand what that second video I showed you of the external tank. I don't know what that was, and we need to understand that. We have not done our comprehensive study of the underside of the vehicle. We have not done any kind of study on the panels on the wing leading edge of the nose cap. We will do those in the next 3 days, and understand, and at that point then I'll be able to characterize whether this was clean or not clean, or if we have any concerns. So, you know, again, I hate to do this, guys. I'm going to bring you along one step at a time, and it's going to be frustrating for the next 3 days, and we'll be able to tie it up with a bow, I think, by flight day 6. And it's just going to be a little frustrating as we walk through this, but we have a very specific, comprehensive set of data analysis that we need to go do, and we have that plan in place.
Patrick Peterson with Florida Today. Do you know of a case where a previous shuttle has returned with damage, or returned not showing damage like this after it's already landed safely?
Well, you know, it's well documented that we had 15,000 different things on shuttle tile post-flight. Whether we've had this exact damage will absolutely be well understood as we go through this mission. You know, this may just be the damage you can see. We'll look at the entire underside of the vehicle. Any areas that violate the criteria that we've set for inspection, that's one of the data points, is you go see what it is, you understand what your flight history is on it, you understand what your thermal models are telling you. You may go test in the ArcJet facility if that's appropriate. And all of that will come into the decision of, do I need to go do a repair? And if I need to do a repair, what type of repair would be appropriate for this? So again, we'll understand if we have any damage, what it is, and then we'll march through our process to understand if we need to take any action to rectify it. Do we have any others up here? None? Okay, any more? Okay, looks like that's it. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.